Welcome to my channel. Like and subscribe and comment down below new novel you want to listen. The only player in the Marvel Universe. Chapter 41 seems to have infiltrated the supervillain's headquarters. As expected of a large company, the Osborn Group was extremely efficient, and the test results came out very quickly. Just as Mew said. A cancer patient miraculously recovered normal bodily functions in a very short time after drinking a life-saving potion. Apart from the remaining cancer cells in his body, he is otherwise just like a healthy person. As long as he continues to take this medicine, even cancer will not pose a life-threatening risk. Unfortunately, after detailed testing by the Osborn Group's top research department, they were unable to analyze any of the potion's components, let alone replicate it. Upon hearing this conclusion, Norman was both surprised and disappointed. He immediately turned to Mew and asked eagerly, "Mr. Mew, how much of this life-saving potion do you have left?" Mew shook his head, "No, this is the only bottle I've successfully made so far." "Norman! Why the hell didn't you say so sooner?" Norman's composure crumbled instantly. If he had known this would happen, he would have drunk it himself first. Before Norman could recover from his frustration, Mew continued, "However, given enough materials and time, I can try to make more life potions." Actually, Mew still had some life-saving potions, but he certainly wouldn't just take them out like that, otherwise how could he continue fishing? Upon hearing this, the gloom on Norman's face vanished instantly, replaced by an incredibly enthusiastic smile. He stepped forward and patted Mew on the shoulder forcefully, "Mr. Mew, you are officially hired. From now on, you are a senior researcher at our Osborn Group. I will arrange your research lab as soon as possible. Please feel free to ask if you need anything, and the Osborn Group will do its best to meet your research needs. As for salary and benefits, I can offer you the highest level, including a house and car worth no less than $1 million, which I guarantee will not disappoint you, Mr. Doom. What do you think?" Mew's expression turned solemn, and his tone became firm. "I am willing to go through fire and water for the Osborn Group, Mr. Osborn." Norman smiled with satisfaction, "Very good. I will send someone to show you around our Osborn Group environment later. I have only one request, which is to produce the new life potion as soon as possible." "No problem, Mr. Osborn." Mew nodded in agreement. After exchanging a few more polite words, Norman turned and left. As the big boss of the Osborn Group, he is very busy, unlike Tony, who is a big shot and simply dumps all the work on his female assistant, Pepper Potts. Not long after, the door was pushed open, and a blonde girl in a white lab coat walked in. "Hello, Mr. Doom, I'm Gwen Stacy, and I'll be showing you around the Osborn Corporation," Gwen said with a smile. "Okay." Under Gwen's guidance, Mew began his tour of the Osborn building. First, they went to the Osborn Group's biological division and met with the person in charge. "This is Professor Court Conus, a distinguished scientist at our Osborn Group," Gwen introduced. "Hello, nice to meet you." Professor Connors was gentle and offered his left hand. Mew noticed that he was missing his right arm and glanced at the message with curiosity. "NPC, Court Conus. Codename, Dr. Lizard. Fav Hour Ability, 0. Review, Marvel's Yanguo, Spider-Man's nemesis, Peter's mentor. Status, amputated arm. Another supervillain?" Mew was slightly surprised. It seemed he had encountered quite a few supervillains today. Moreover, each of them has a close relationship with Peter, and they all become Spider-Man's enemies. Could Peter, that unlucky kid, be cursed? Afterwards, Gwen took Mew to visit other departments of the Osborn Group, where they saw various research projects that had been developed or were under development, each of which could be described as cutting-edge technology. Mew was truly amazed, witnessing firsthand the immense wealth of the Osborn Group. He scanned the heads of each department, and they were all top experts in their respective fields, as if all the top talents in America had gathered at the Osborne Group. In comparison, Stark Industries is basically supported by Tony alone. Thinking about it that way, Tony seems even more amazing. While riding the elevator, a black man wearing glasses rushed in. "Sorry. Sorry." The bespectacled black man apologized repeatedly to Mew and Gwen while frantically pressing the elevator buttons. Seeing the other person's shiny forehead, which was almost reflective, Mew assumed he was another top talent and subconsciously checked his information. NPC, Max Dillon. Codename, Electroman. Fav Hour Ability, 0. Review, Power Bank, Spider-Man's nemesis, Spider-Man's biggest fan. Mew. No, did I infiltrate the supervillain's headquarters? Why is he always surrounded by supervillains wherever he goes? The most outrageous thing is that these are all Spider-Man's archenemies. Mew felt that the Osborne Corporation could be renamed the Spider-Man Villain Training Center. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Gwen beside him with suspicion. Could this person also be a nemesis of some Spider-Man? NPC, Gwenstansis. Codename, Ghost Spider. Fav Hour Ability, 0. Review, the daughter of the New York Sheriff, also Spider-Gwen in the parallel universe Earth 65. Okay, not Spider-Man's nemesis, but other versions of Spider-Man. The Osborne Group really is a place that produces a lot of talented people. Mew couldn't help but sigh. Then he asked, "System, what does Earth 65 mean?" "That's the game server's ID. Each server corresponds to a randomly generated, independent game world, which may contain familiar NPCs, but they are completely different entities." This time, the game system didn't use official language to brush off Mew, but instead answered his question seriously. Mew immediately became interested and asked, "Can I go to other game servers?" Yes, players can unlock access to other servers by continuing to upgrade their account privileges. Brilliant! Mew couldn't help but get excited. He discovered that the game's content was far richer than he had imagined. This is going to be fun. Mew asked, "What is the server number?" "Earth 9527. This number is good." Not long after, Mew finished his visit to the Osborne building. However, he still failed to uncover Norman's secret project in cooperation with the military. It's obvious that Norman must have hidden it. Mew, however, was not in a hurry. Since Nick Fury didn't have a set time, he could slack off at Osborne's company and continue reading his comic books. P.S. I'm almost at 10 words. Please continue to read, vote, and add this to your favorites. This is very important to the author. End of this chapter. Chapter 42. You, a researcher, are talking to me about metaphysics? Chapter 42. You, a researcher, are talking to me about metaphysics? Under Norman's personal arrangement, Mew's project laboratory was quickly put into place. This private laboratory is not only spacious and independent, but also equipped with a large number of professional research equipment and ample experimental materials for his use at any time. Norman had originally planned to assign Mew several researchers and assistants to help with his work. But Mew resolutely refused, only asking Gwen, an intern at the Osborne Group, to come and serve as his assistant. Time flies by. A few days later, Norman arrived at Mew's laboratory, eager to learn about the research progress. He pushed open the laboratory door, and a strong and peculiar smell immediately hit him. Mew and Gwen were standing around the experimental table, on which sat a steaming hot pot. When cooking tripe, you should follow the 7 dips and 8 lifts principle, understand? I understand. Gwen clumsily swished the tripe with chopsticks, her focused expression as if she were operating some kind of sophisticated experimental instrument. The two were so engrossed in their hot pot that they didn't notice Norman standing at the door. "What are you doing?" Norman finally couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but question him. Upon seeing Norman's arrival, Gwen was so startled that her hand trembled, and the tripe she had just picked up almost fell back into the pot. Mew calmly raised his head and replied, "Can't you tell? We're developing a life-saving potion. I had no idea until you pointed it out." Norman pointed at the boiling hot pot, veins throbbing on his forehead, and gritted his teeth, saying, "Don't tell me this pot of stuff is the life potion." Mew explained in a serious tone, "It's like this, Mr. Osborne, we are developing a life potion with a hot pot flavor. In the future, we also plan to develop more flavors of life potions so that patients will have more choices according to their preferences." Norman. Are you fucking sick? Who would make medicine come in so many flavors? This is medicine, not a snack. But Norman wasn't in the mood to delve into that question right now, and asked directly, "How long will it take to develop a bottle of life potion?" Mew could clearly sense the barely concealed urgency in Norman's words. Clearly, Norman's health was deteriorating. "Maybe 1 or 2 weeks, maybe about a month," Mew said casually. Norman's face turned ashen upon hearing this answer. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Can we speed up the development process of the life-saving potion?" Mew asked curiously, "What's wrong, Mr. Osborne? Do you need it urgently? Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." "Well, that's a bit difficult, mainly because it depends on fate." Norman. "You're a researcher, and you're talking to me about fate and other mystical things? Is that even fair?" Norman sensed that Mew was somewhat unreliable, and his face turned ashen as he said, "I don't care what method you use, you must produce a bottle of life potion within 2 days." "I'll try my best." Mew spread his hands, Norman snorted coldly, and left the laboratory. Gwen put down her chopsticks and looked at Doom with concern. "Doom, is this really okay? These past few days she's been eating, drinking, having fun, and doing research with Mew, so their relationship has become quite close." Gwen was worried that if Mew couldn't produce the life-saving potion, Norman would hold him accountable later. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Mew waved his hand dismissively, since he had never really intended to work for Norman anyway. What's the point of having an NPC who can't even issue quests? Looks like we can start taking action now. Mew pulled out a black access card and thought to himself. After observing for several days, he discovered a secret floor hidden deep within the Osborne building, but that floor could only be unlocked by Norman's exclusive access card. Just as Norman approached, Mew swiped the access card from his pocket. After giving Gwen a few brief instructions, Mew also left the laboratory. Instead of acting immediately, he slipped into the empty bathroom and put on a disguise mask. Yes, that's right, it's Stanislavski's mask. Then, he swaggered toward the elevator and waited for it to descend. Just then, an employee carrying documents happened to walk by and inadvertently caught sight of the highly recognizable face in front of the elevator, and was immediately shocked. "Mr. Stanislav." As the former second-in-command and major shareholder of Stark Industries, Steiner was quite well known in the business and technology circles, so it was perfectly normal for him to be recognized. "Well, it's me." Mew imitated Stanislavski's arrogant and aloof tone, nodding slightly. Just then, the elevator doors opened, and he stepped in, pressing his access card onto the sensor area without hesitation, activating the bottommost button that had never been accessible to ordinary employees. As the elevator doors slowly closed, the employees outside breathed a sigh of relief and patted their chests. It has to be said that the sense of oppression from a big shot like Stanislavski is truly strong. But soon, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Wait a minute, weren't there tons of news reports a while ago saying that Stanislav died in an accident? So that was. The employee swallowed hard, a chill running down his spine. Oh my god! He thinks he just saw a ghost. Ding! The elevator doors slid open smoothly, leading us to that mysterious final floor. Mew stepped outside and found that this place was completely different from the bright laboratories upstairs. Rather than a laboratory, this place is more like a combination of a high-tech weapons arsenal and a private research and development center. In the most prominent central area, there is a cool-looking green glider, while on the shelf next to it, there are a dozen or so pumpkin-shaped metal bombs and a set of dark green tight-fitting combat suits. Wow, the game designers actually hid so many treasures here. Mew's eyes lit up immediately. Without hesitation, he activated the auto pickup mode and put all the equipment and weapons into his game inventory. After doing all this, he turned his attention to an encrypted computer terminal in the corner that was connected to an independent network. Mew took out his hacker phone and easily cracked and hacked into the computer terminal. As the screen unlocks, a large number of encrypted files are revealed. Mew quickly found a secret document bearing the emblem of the Ministry of National Defense. Upon closer inspection, the document reveals that Norman is collaborating with the military in an attempt to replicate a super soldier serum project originating from World War II. The report shows that after numerous failures, 2 serum samples have been successfully replicated, but they are marked in bright red next to them as having not been tested on humans and with unknown risks. Just as Mew confirmed the contents of the secret document, a system notification sounded in his mind. Mission: Investigate the Osborne Group completed. Rewards: 1000 XP, 20 SHIELD Reputation. Item: Dying Will Bomb. Item: Dying Will Bullet. Those hit by it will have their heads ignited in flames, their physical attributes will be greatly enhanced, and they will do everything in their power to accomplish the thing they regretted most before being hit. The side effect is that their clothes will be torn off, and they are prone to dying. End of this chapter. Chapter 43. Before I die, I must take Betty to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. Chapter 43. Before I die, I must take Betty to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. Osborne Group suffers major theft. The news quickly spread throughout the entire Osborne Group, causing a stir. Not long ago, several high-value core products or prototypes within the Osborne Group disappeared without a trace and their whereabouts remain unknown, resulting in significant losses. Even more outrageous, according to information that came from an unknown source, someone witnessed the suspect's appearance firsthand. The other party was none other than Obadiah Stanislav, the former second-largest shareholder of Stark Industries. In an instant, all sorts of rumors flew around. Some say that Stanislav never died and was still lurking inside the Osborne building. Some say that Stanislav Stein's ghost has been resurrected, but he was born a Stark Industries employee and died a Stark Industries ghost. Even as a ghost, he still remembers to go through fire and water for Stark Industries and came to Osborne Corporation to cause trouble. Even more alarming, rumors circulated that Stanislav had become a ravenous monster, roaming the Osborne Corporation in search of prey, and that Dr. Doom, who mysteriously disappeared shortly after joining the company, was the best evidence of his evil deeds. In short, none of this has anything to do with Mew, who has already fled at lightning speed. After Mew passed the information he had obtained to Nick Fury's face darkened even more, and his voice was filled with suppressed anger. It's definitely that old guy Ross again. Looks like he hasn't given up on that damn super soldier program yet. Agent Mew, I have an urgent mission for you. Just recently, General Ross illegally broke into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s encrypted database and used it to pinpoint Bruce Banner's location. I need you to return to Bruce Banner's side immediately and make sure he doesn't fall into General Ross's hands. NPC Nick Fury has given you a new mission. Mission: the defense of Bruce Banner. Objective: prevent Bruce Banner from falling into General Ross's hands. Rewards: 1500 experience points, 30 SHIELD reputation, 1 random piece of equipment, 1 random item. Is Bruce a ball? Why is it that SHIELD and the military are constantly fighting over it? Mew asked in surprise. When did our SHIELD security system become the same as Hammer Industries? Not long ago, he had heard Tony complaining about Hammer Industries' security system, but now S.H.I.E.L.D's security system had also been hacked. Nick Fury gritted his teeth and said, "That's because of the Security Council. They gave General Ross special authorization. While overseeing extraordinary events around the world, SHIELD is also subject to oversight by the World Security Council, which is composed of representatives from multiple countries. Even Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, has to comply with the Council's decisions on some levels, no matter how idiotic those decisions may be." Upon hearing this, Mew immediately patted his chest and said, "Director, as long as you issue a mission, I guarantee I'll chop up those council guys and shove you into the position of leader. At that time, our SHIELD will be unstoppable, invincible, and will march all the way to the moon and flatten the entire world." "Stop! Stop! Hold on!" Nick Fury was so frightened that his voice changed, and he quickly interrupted Mew's dangerous remarks. A chill ran down his spine, fearing that if Mew continued to speak recklessly, SHIELD would be wiped out by the whole world as the second Hydra. "I'll handle these things, you just need to complete your own tasks." After Nick Fury finished speaking, he immediately hung up the phone, fearing that Mew might say something dangerous again. Night. Several military tactical vehicles quickly drove into the Harlem area. Several armed helicopters circled overhead, their searchlight beams shining on the area below. A soldier who looked like he was good at playing the piano was the first to jump off the military tactical vehicle, carrying a gun, and rushed towards a building not far away with a clear objective. Other soldiers followed closely behind, surging into the building like a tide, leaving only a small number of soldiers on the outside to stand guard. Boom! Just then, a sniper rifle shot pierced the night sky. A window in the building shattered with a crash, turning into countless glittering shards that scattered across the ground. Upon hearing the gunshot, passers-by instinctively covered their heads and crouched down. As a New York City resident, this is a skill that everyone should possess. Soon, everyone saw Bruce Banner, who was tightly bound with restraints and whose face was covered in bruises, being escorted out by a group of soldiers. "Dad! Please, please let him go." Bruce's girlfriend, Betty, who is also General Ross's daughter, was crying and pleading with her father. General Ross remained unmoved and coldly said, "Bruce Banner is a fugitive, and I will never let him go. If you weren't my daughter, I would have arrested you by now." General Ross disliked his son-in-law Bruce very much. This can be seen from the fact that he spent 8 years hunting Bruce all over the world. Bruce was incredibly unlucky to have such a tough father-in-law. He never expected that the person accompanying him on his round-the-world trip would not be his girlfriend, but an old man with a full beard. Of course, Bruce knew that General Ross's real target was not him, but the green monster inside him. This cold-blooded general is obsessed with his super soldier creation project, attempting to use the Hulk to create a super soldier that surpasses Captain America, which is why he is so persistent in hunting him down. But now, Bruce isn't worried at all. Because he has successfully developed an antidote to eliminate the Hulk. Moreover, the antidote was very effective. General Ross beat Bruce to a pulp, but he didn't see even a hint of green on Bruce's face. On the other hand, General Ross is so angry he's practically turned into a red giant. It's important to know that General Ross hunted Bruce for 8 years, with the core objective being the Hulk. Now that Bruce has been injected with the antidote, Hulk is likely to disappear without a trace, meaning that General Ross's painstaking super soldier transformation plan will be completely ruined. 8 years of his youth have gone down the drain. One can only imagine how General Ross must feel at this moment. General Ross grew increasingly angry and threatened Bruce fiercely, "If Hulk is gone, I guarantee you're finished." Bruce did not respond. He knew that if he fell into General Ross's hands, his fate would be grim. But Bruce had no regrets whatsoever. For him, Hulk was a nightmare. Even the topics he discusses with his girlfriend are never more than 18+, for fear that an excitement might make her go wild on the spot. Thinking of this, Bruce looked at Betty, who was in tears, and his voice was filled with deep regret. "Betty, I don't regret what I did. My only regret is that I couldn't keep our promise to go to Iceland with you to see the Northern Lights." "It's okay, Bruce, I don't blame you." Betty covered her mouth and cried. Boom! A gunshot suddenly shattered their tragic moment. An orange bullet struck Bruce squarely in the forehead, and Bruce fell to the ground. Everyone present was shocked. General Ross was the first to react, his eyes wide with fury as he scanned his surroundings and roared, "Who fired the shot? Who was it?" Upon seeing Bruce's death, General Ross acted more anxious than anyone else. "Bruce? No." Betty looked at her fallen lover and let out a heart-wrenching scream. However, in the very next instant, Bruce's tightly closed eyes snapped open. His body sprang up from the stretcher as if propelled by a spring, and at the same time, his clothes and restraints ripped apart with a tearing sound, revealing a brand new pair of green underwear underneath. A blazing flame was burning above his head. Bruce's eyes were sharp as knives, filled with unwavering determination, as he roared to the sky. "Before I die, I must take Betty to Iceland to see the Northern Lights." The words fell. Bruce scooped Betty into his arms and instantly unleashed a speed far exceeding human limits, sprinting away into the distance. Only a stunned audience remained standing there. Thank you so much to Reader 2020 Sad Snow for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-1. Have a safe trip, Bruce. Chapter 44. Have a safe trip, Bruce. No one expected that Bruce would come back to life after being shot in the head. What no one expected was that this seemingly frail scientist not only broke through the sturdy restraints, but also ran so fast while carrying a woman. Even General Ross was stunned by what he saw. Such formidable physical abilities, isn't this the super soldier he's always dreamed of? If he had known this would happen, why was he so fixated on the Hulk? He should have just kidnapped Bruce and taken him back for research. As for the mastermind behind all of this, needless to say, it was Mew who had quietly arrived at the scene. Seeing such a large army surrounding him, Mew decisively abandoned the idea of rescuing Bruce in public. So he used the death energy bomb he had just acquired to secretly fire one at Bruce. According to the description of the dying will bullet, once hit, the person will do everything in their power to accomplish the thing they regretted most before being hit. Bruce had just told Betty that his biggest regret was not being able to go to Iceland with her to see the Northern Lights. Therefore, Bruce will absolutely not remove his death aura until he achieves this goal. And many more. Mew suddenly discovered a blind spot. In a state of death, it seems that actions such as buying plane tickets or boarding a plane will not be performed. In other words, Bruce could only reach Iceland on foot. Have a safe trip, Bruce. Hope you have a great time in Iceland. As Mew watched the receding figure grow smaller and smaller, he silently offered his blessings. General Ross finally snapped out of his daze. Seeing Bruce about to disappear from sight, he roared into the communicator, "Attention everyone! The target is escaping. Capture him! Remember, capture him alive!" Upon receiving the order, the soldiers sprang into action. However, General Ross looked around and realized that a key figure was missing. Where are the Bronskys? Emil Bronsky was a top Special Forces soldier that General Ross had seconded from the Royal Marines. Just recently, Bronsky was injected with a replica of the super soldier serum produced by the Osborne Group and survived, gaining physical abilities far exceeding those of ordinary people. However, this is still somewhat different from the super soldier in General Ross's mind, and it still cannot shake Hulk's position in his heart. A soldier immediately pointed to the building where Bruce had been hiding and reported, "Blonsky's team went in to capture the target and hasn't come out since. What happened?" General Ross frowned, intending to contact Bronsky. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Bang! On the top floor of the building where Bruce had been hiding, a heavy medical operating table suddenly smashed through the wall and plummeted from a great height, crashing heavily to the ground with a loud bang. With a piercing scream, several soldiers were thrown dozens of meters away through the newly broken hole in the wall by a terrifying force, crashing heavily onto the wall of a distant building and instantly losing their lives. Boom! Another loud noise. The building's wall was blasted open again, sending bricks and stones flying everywhere and kicking up clouds of dust. Amidst the billowing smoke and dust, a massive figure slowly emerged from the hole. It was a full 3 meters tall, with grayish-green skin covered in wrinkles and scale-like patterns. Its muscles were bulging, and its joints were covered with vicious, sharp bone spurs, making it look like a natural killing weapon, which sent chills down one's spine. Then, the monster leaped off the edge of the high-rise building, its feet landing heavily on the hard concrete road, creating 2 craters. "Hulk! Come out here! Let's have another good fight!" The monster's roar, filled with ferocious battle intent, instantly resounded throughout the entire area. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Doomew's mind. "Attention players, the boss event has officially begun. Objective: defeat Abomination Emil Brinsky. Rewards: depend on the damage players deal to the boss, the higher the damage, the richer the rewards." At that moment, General Ross and his soldiers were completely captivated by the sudden surge of hatred. "Is that Hulk? No, Bruce clearly ran away a long time ago." Without giving General Ross time to think, he immediately ordered, "Fire! Open fire on it!" Da-da-da-da-da! Countless sparks burst from the muzzle of the gun. The soldiers on the ground immediately turned their guns and launched a fierce attack on the huge grey-green figure in the field. However, the soldiers' guns were completely ineffective against the abominations, the bullets only produced tiny sparks when they hit them. Faced with this attack that felt like a tickle, Abomination did not choose to hold back against these former comrades. It grinned, revealing a ferocious and cruel smile, and then took heavy steps, rushing to the nearest group of soldiers in the blink of an eye, and began a frenzied slaughter of the surrounding soldiers. The soldiers were no match for this terrifying monster. Accompanied by short, shrill screams, the soldiers fell one after another, suffering extremely heavy losses. "Ha ha ha! This power is absolutely amazing!" He felt the surging power within him and let out a rough, ear-piercing laugh. General Ross was escorted by soldiers to a safe area at the rear. He glared at Abomination, who was even more ferocious than the Hulk, and gritted his teeth, saying, "Abandon the pursuit of Bruce Banner. All troops are immediately recalled to Harlem. Concentrate your firepower and take down this monster." Upon receiving General Ross's order, the troop vehicles that were originally trying to intercept Bruce on the periphery immediately changed direction and approached the Abomination in the center of the street. The hatred was completely unconcerned about the incoming firepower. He grabbed a car from the roadside and slammed it into an infantry fighting vehicle that was accelerating toward him. Bang! A heavy impact rang out. The infantry fighting vehicle was smashed and severely deformed, then rolled away, and the fate of the soldiers inside is unknown. Puff! An anti-tank missile streaked out, leaving a trail of flame, and struck the Abomination precisely in the chest. The massive explosion and flames instantly engulfed the Abomination. Hit! The soldiers let out a brief cheer. However, before the smoke had completely cleared, a huge figure rushed out unharmed. All that could be seen on the Abomination's grayish-green chest was a blackened mark, without even breaking the skin. It rushed in front of the soldiers, swung its huge fist and smashed them into several heaps of flesh. Inside the command vehicle in the distance, General Ross saw this scene through a remote monitoring screen, and his face instantly stiffened. Only monsters can defeat monsters. Although General Ross had never heard this phrase before, he understood its meaning. The problem is, Bruce, the only one who can fight against Abomination, has long since disappeared with his daughter. The abhorrent massacre continues. It's not like Hulk, a mindless brute who trades intelligence for strength. While enhanced, it retains a small amount of its original intelligence, less than nothing. As a former member of the unit, he was familiar with all the unit's arrangements, and with his current powerful physique, killing was effortless for him. Give me an even stronger opponent. Having easily wiped out another squad, Abomination felt an explosion of confidence and couldn't help but let out an arrogant roar. Just then, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly rang out. Agreement 1, connect to the ironclad. End of this chapter. Chapter 45 Titan Technology. Kid. Chapter 45 Titan Technology. Kid. A cold, mechanical sound suddenly rang out. Looking in the direction of the sound, he saw a military green mecha suddenly appear on the street. Unlike Tony's humanoid armor, this mech is exceptionally large and heavy, resembling a mobile steel fortress. It holds a massive XO-16 chain gun, with small missile bays on its shoulders, and a large rectangular optical sensor array at the core of its head, emitting a bright blue light. On the side of the head, the serial number BT-7274 can be clearly seen. This mech is the reward Doomu received after defeating the Iron Monarch, the BT-7274 Vanguard Titan. When he fought the Hulk, he thought about summoning it, but the environment of Midtown High School was too cramped and not suitable for a highly mobile mech like BT-7274 to fight. Now, he finally has the chance to summon the mech and play with it. Upon seeing BT appear, Abomination was momentarily stunned. What is this stuff? Tony Stark's new toy? Having heard of Tony Stark's exploits, the mech before him instinctively assumed it was a new generation of armor developed by the latter. But he quickly came to his senses, his eyes revealing deep disdain. How could mere armor possibly compare to his powerful body, forged through countless trials? Nothing can stop my power. Roaring, the Abomination took huge strides and charged toward BT. At this moment, Doomu in the cockpit has completed the neural connection with BT, and the synchronization rate has reached 100%, truly achieving human-machine integration. As soon as Doomu had a thought, BT's thick mechanical arm immediately raised the XO-16 chain gun, and the muzzle accurately locked onto the charging Abomination. Da-da-da-da-da. In an instant, a deafening roar tore through the air. The scorching bullets spewed wildly from the muzzle, turning into a deadly metal storm that poured down on the Abomination's massive body. The XO-16 chain gun is extremely powerful. Even the Abomination's powerful body, capable of withstanding missile bombardment, had its tough skin torn open with several gruesome wounds after enduring this round of ferocious fire, from which dark green blood spurted out. It's important to know that Titan's opponents are usually other Titans. To break through the Titan's high-tech outer shell defense, the weapon's destructive power would naturally be considerable. How can it be? Feeling waves of excruciating pain coursing through his body, the man of loathing was utterly shocked. Since it took this form, it has never been so badly injured by any weapon. Even the heavy firepower of the army was just like a tickle to it. And this mech in front of us was actually able to break through its defenses. For those who hate the pursuit of power, this is an absolutely intolerable disgrace. Damn Tin Can! I'm going to tear you to pieces. Despite the excruciating pain from his wounds, Abomination charged toward BT at an astonishing speed. The next moment, he suddenly swung his huge fist, accompanied by a terrifying whistling sound, and smashed it down towards BT's head. However, the one who controls BT is Doomu, who has a 100% synchronization rate. At this moment, BT's reaction and agility were like a huge extension of Doomu's body. The moment the Abomination's fist came crashing down, BT's massive and heavy machine displayed incredible agility, its upper body sliding sideways and leaning back to easily avoid the Abomination's giant fist. At the same time, BT's left robotic arm suddenly retracted. Driven by a hydraulic system, a multi-ton metal joint slammed into the Abomination's large face with a mechanical elbow. Thai boxing warning. Bang! Click! A chilling, muffled thud, mixed with the clearly audible sound of bones cracking, suddenly exploded out. The creature, loathing its massive body, was elbowed so hard that its feet left the ground, sending it flying backward and crashing heavily into an abandoned factory building in the distance, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Strike while the iron is hot. Without the slightest hesitation, Mew, taking advantage of the fact that the abomination had not yet gotten up, controlled the BT to rush in front of it, and the XO-16 chain gun was neatly retracted into the arm-mounted interface. Immediately afterwards, 2 huge iron fists were raised high and unleashed a barrage of heavy punches at the abomination, who had just struggled to his feet from the wall. Thud! 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 The impacts were like the beating of war drums, exploding in rapid succession. His hideous face was repeatedly distorted by the iron fist, and dark green blood and shattered bone fragments flew everywhere with each punch. Mew got so into the game that he even subconsciously controlled BT to deliver a few more groin kicks. But upon closer inspection, it was discovered that the lower half of the abomination's enormous body was completely bald. It was unclear whether the abomination had overused technology, although its head hadn't become pointed, a certain organ symbolizing gender had disappeared. Good heavens, I would call you the invincible East of America. For a moment, the terrifying sound of impact echoed through the streets, sending chills down everyone's spine. Is this the new gadget Stark came up with? Like Abomination, General Ross also mistook BT for a suit of armor developed by Tony. Watching Mew, piloting a BT, completely overwhelm Abomination, General Ross's long-held belief began to waver. Is his super soldier program already outdated? Is playing with mechs the right path? Asshole! The suppressed hatred let out a deafening roar, and with a powerful kick, it slammed its leg into BT's body, shoving the heavy armor off him. It then quickly got up, ignoring its injuries, and stomped its feet hard on the ground. Boom! The hard road surface cracked instantly. With the help of the powerful recoil, Abomination rushed to BT in the blink of an eye like a cannonball, and then raised its 2 fists to smash into BT's body. The protective shield has been activated. BT's signature cold, mechanical voice rang out. In an instant, an invisible energy ripple covered the surface of the mech, firmly blocking the Abomination's fists that were powerful enough to crush a tank. Abomination was clearly taken aback. What the hell is this thing? Titan Technologies, kid. Mew's voice was transmitted via BT. The words have not yet fallen. BT's right mechanical arm ejected a Titan's greatsword, which it slashed forcefully at the Abomination's head without hesitation. The Abomination's pupils constricted sharply, its keen instinct for danger triggering an instantaneous reaction as it raised its arm to shield itself. Puff! The sharp blade flashed with a cold light and easily severed the Abomination's thick wrist. Roar! The Abomination let out a heart-wrenching scream of pain, and blood gushed from its severed wrist. But Mew's movements did not stop. He controlled BT to spin and swing his arm. The huge blade drew several arcs in the air and slashed hard at the Abomination's huge body. With a tearing sound, several deep, bone-revealing wounds appeared on the Abomination's body. Instantly, a large amount of blood gushed out from the torn flesh. Thank you so much to Reader 2025103115025413 for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 46 Eat My Plasma Railgun. Chapter 46 Eat My Plasma Railgun. Ho ho ho. The hatred, severely wounded, let out a painful and shrill roar. It has clearly been injected with a replica of the super soldier serum and even incorporated a small amount of Hulk blood. It is full of technology and ruthless techniques, and can be described as a crystallization of cutting-edge biotechnology. In the end, they were still mercilessly crushed by BT, which was controlled by Mew. How can this be acceptable to those who hate it? Damn! A glint of malice flashed in Abomination's eyes as he stretched out his intact right hand and grabbed BT's mechanical arm that was holding the Titan's greatsword. Ignoring the excruciating pain from his broken left wrist, Abomination swung his left arm and, like a pile driver, furiously smashed and pounded against BT's chassis. Under the relentless and fierce onslaught of hatred, the invisible protective shield covering the BT body fluctuated violently, and its energy was decreasing at a visible rate. Mew, inside the cockpit, remained calm and quickly opened the missile bays on both sides of BT's shoulders. Immediately, several miniature missiles spewed out scorching flames from their tails and launched a point-blank bombardment at the Abomination. Boom! A deafening explosion suddenly rang out. The powerful impact exploded between the two, instantly sending the Abomination flying. Protected by the energy shield, BT was not damaged. After tumbling 2.5 times in the air, it landed steadily on the ground. Immediately afterwards, BT switched his weapon to a sniper rifle with a long barrel. Mew raised his gun and locked onto Abomination, who had just struggled to his feet. The energy core in the center of the gun hummed and began to charge, emitting a dangerous orange-red light. "Eat my plasma railgun!" Boom! A blinding orange-red beam of light suddenly erupted, shooting straight at the Abomination with the force of thunder. The Abomination had no time to dodge before its massive body was instantly pierced by the terrifying beam of light. It lowered its head in disbelief. In the center of his chest, a huge, charred hole was clearly visible. The flesh and blood around the punctured area sizzled under the high temperature of the plasma, while the internal organs and bones inside were completely carbonized. "How come?" Hatred let out a final, unwilling growl. Then, its gaze gradually became unfocused, and its massive body crashed to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. The next moment, a system notification sounded in Mew's mind. "You have successfully defeated the boss Abomination Emil Bronsky. Start calculating damage rewards." Rewards are as follows: 15,000 experience points, 7 free attribute points, skill Fiery Eyes, equipment Little Lee's Mom's Throwing Knife, item Cat's Memory, item Senzu Bean. Skill Sharp Eyes, can see through all falsehoods or disguises, revealing the true nature of things, including beauty filters and Eastern makeup tricks, so you'll never have to worry about being scammed online again. Equipment Little Lee's Mom's Throwing Knife, ranked number 1 on the weapon list, never misses. Item Cat's Memories, this item forces one person to view a cat's memories. The images are extremely disturbing, and viewers may have unpredictable reactions. Please use with caution. Item Senzu Bean, instantly restores stamina and heals internal and external injuries, but is ineffective against diseases. 1 bean can sustain 10 days of hunger. Compared to the previous 2 boss battles, the rewards this time are much more generous. Mew guessed that it was probably related to the boss's strength. He skillfully allocated his free attribute points to the 3 major attributes, and his strength increased once again. After eliminating the Abomination, Mew ignored General Ross and his troops in the distance and quickly left the scene in BT. The following day, the major battle that broke out in Harlem the previous night quickly made headlines in major media outlets. Apart from the Daily Bugle's usual reporting on Spider-Man's dirty secrets, other newspapers focused entirely on the battle between BT and Abomination that Mew controlled last night. Many people believe that BT is a new type of armor created by Tony Stark. However, this news was quickly denied by Stark Industries' public relations department. This denial, on the contrary, only fueled people's curiosity about the origins of BT, leading to speculation about the identity of the pilot of this mysterious mech. Meanwhile, large-scale demonstrations and protests took place in the streets. Most of the participants in the march were residents of Harlem or citizens who happened to be in Harlem last night. All these people had one thing in common: their houses and cars were damaged in last night's battle. It's important to know that many people purchase their houses and cars with loans. You've worked hard to pay off a loan for years or even decades, and it all vanished overnight. Not only did they lose their house and car, but they also have to continue repaying huge loans. Who could bear that? Under the covert instigation of a certain ruthless scoundrel, these victims learned that the monster that ravaged Harlem that night was a soldier under General Ross. Upon learning the truth, the angry public immediately turned their anger towards General Ross, demanding that the military compensate them for their losses. General Ross was caught in a media storm, and even Bruce, who had fled with his daughter, had no time to pay attention to him. Mew also received a system notification. Mission Battle to defend Bruce Banner completed. Rewards: 1500 XP, 30 SHIELD Reputation, Professor Yang's Ring Equipment, Hair Growth Serum Item. Equipment: Professor Yang's Ring, can instantly release extremely high electrical current. Item: Hair Growth Potion, use it to get ahead of beautiful, black hair. A boon for programmers. It seems Bruce has escaped the military's pursuit. I wonder where he is now, and whether he has escaped from America. Agent Mew. Mew's wandering thoughts were suddenly interrupted. Nick Fury glared at him, knowing the guy wasn't listening to him again, and said, "You caused quite a stir last night. Do you know how many people are looking for you right now?" Mew asked in confusion, "Why are you looking for me?" "Of course it's for your big thing, especially the military. They've started contacting Tony Stark, wanting him to build the same Jaeger, but Tony Stark refused." Nick Fury knew that the mech was created by Mew. This guy always manages to come up with some really amazing things that even he's never heard of before. Nick Fury tested the items provided by Mew and found that they could not be analyzed to find any components, as if these things did not exist in this world at all. What's even stranger is that these items seem to be automatically bound to Mew. Without his consent, even if someone else gets their hands on them, they will immediately disappear and return to Mew. As for threatening Mew to hand over these items, Nick Fury never even considered this. Despite Mew's usual obedience to the tasks he was given, Nick Fury knew all too well how uncontrollable this guy was. If anyone dares to provoke this guy, he will absolutely smash their head without hesitation. As for how high the other person's status is, that's not even within his consideration. To paraphrase Mew, "I am the fourth calamity, how dare you, a mere NPC, provoke me? Damn it, do you have a death wish?" Nick Fury can certainly attest to this. When the two first met, Mew openly plotted to kill him, saying he wanted to see if he could get any equipment. At that moment, Nick Fury almost thought this guy was a Hydra remnant, and his hand was on his gun. Looking back now, Nick Fury only feels a sense of relief. Fortunately, he didn't actually draw his gun, otherwise SHIELD would have held a memorial service the next day. Thank you so much to readers Iahafa for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 47. This is supposed to be the God of Thunder? Chapter 47. This is supposed to be the God of Thunder? Mew paid no attention to Nick Fury's words. It's like in a game where an NPC says that if you don't act quickly, the world will be destroyed, but the players are still leisurely mining and collecting treasure chests, not taking it seriously at all. Seeing Mew like this, Nick Fury rubbed his temples helplessly. In short, you'd better keep a low profile for now. Coulson needs support for his mission in New Mexico. I was originally planning to send Hawkeye, who was on leave, but now you can go instead. NPC Nick Fury has given you a new mission. Mission: support Coulson. Objective: travel to New Mexico, find Coulson, and assist him in carrying out the mission. Rewards: 1000 experience points, 20 SHIELD reputation, 2 items. Okay, sir. Upon receiving the assignment, Mew immediately drove to the desert region of New Mexico. He quickly found the small makeshift base set up by SHIELD and met with Coulson, the highest-ranking official there. "Village Chief, long time no see. Why is your hairline so high again?" Coulson, As Nick Fury's right-hand man and S.H.I.E.L.D.S recognized workaholic, he hardly has any rest time. He is either on a mission or on his way to one every day, and he rarely even gets to see his cello-playing girlfriend. The long hours of travel, coupled with the unavoidable circumstances of middle-aged men, have caused his hair to become increasingly thin. Carlson didn't understand. Mew works harder than him, so how come this guy doesn't lose hair? Carlson pretended not to hear what Mew said next and cut straight to the point. Not long ago, we detected an Einstein-Rosen bridge, or wormhole, in the sky above this area. An alien object fell out of it. Mew asked curiously, what kind of alien object is it? That's a load of rubbish. Mew. Why did they suddenly start swearing when they were having a nice conversation? Seeing Mew's expression, Carlson explained, I meant that alien object is a hammer. Never mind, you'd better come with me. With that, Carlson led Mew to the innermost part of the small base. As Carlson said, Mew saw a hammer, a square, silver hammer, which didn't look special. Carlson said seriously, according to our tests, so far no one has been able to lift it. Even with a heavy crane, we cannot move this hammer by even half a millimeter. But strangely, it doesn't seem to be due to the weight of the hammer itself. We even tried digging out the soil underneath it, and even with just a little bit left, it was still enough to support the hammer. So magical. Mew immediately became interested, went to the hammer, and grabbed its short handle. Just as he was trying to exert his strength, the system's voice suddenly sounded. You do not meet the requirements for using this equipment. Usage requirements, justice value greater than or equal to 1000. Justice value. Mew was a little surprised. This was the first time he had ever seen equipment with conditions for use, and it even required justice points that he had only recently unlocked. Mew checked his personal attributes panel and found that his justice value had increased to 136. According to system records, these points were earned during his missions, including unintentionally saving many lives and defeating supervillains like Abominations, which also yielded a large amount of justice points. Looks like I still have the potential to be a superhero. Mew thought to himself with smug satisfaction. As for the sin value that was nearly 200 points, he selectively ignored it. What's wrong? Did you find something? Seeing Mew grip the hammer handle in silence for a long time, Carlson couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. He knew Mew was no ordinary person, perhaps the other party could discover some clues. Mew decisively released the short handle of the hammer and nodded, saying, there are conditions for lifting this hammer. It's probably for people who are righteous, brave, upright, and responsible. So it's normal that you can't lift it. Carlson. Why does it feel like you are indirectly insulting someone? Next, Carlson assigned Mew the task of keeping an eye on the hammer until all their testing was completed. This job is easy. Mew somehow acquired a folding recliner and placed it not far from the hammer. He lay down leisurely, sipping an unknown beverage and flipping through a comic book, looking as relaxed as if he were on vacation. This made the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents patrolling around grit their teeth. They already have a lot of trouble at work. Seeing this, my fists clenched. Night. Suddenly, a heavy rain began to fall. As Mew was engrossed in reading the comic book, he heard Carlson's voice coming through the communicator. Mew, someone has broken into the base, and it seems they're heading in your direction. I see. Mew reluctantly got up from the recliner. He wanted to see which bastard was so bold as to trespass on S.H.I.E.L.D.S territory. Amidst the sounds of fierce fighting and running, Mew soon spotted the scoundrel. Oh bye! Mew's eyes widened in surprise. The newcomer was a muscular, long-haired, blonde man with wet hair plastered to his face. He looked remarkably like an actor he remembered. Upon hearing Mew's words, the burly man retorted loudly, I am Thor, the great god of thunder, son of Odin. Du Mu chuckled upon hearing this, if you are the god of thunder, then I am Qin Shi Huang. How dare you? You mere mortals, how dare you blaspheme the gods? Saul was furious. He roared and rushed over, throwing a punch at Du Mu. It must be said that his speed was indeed astonishing, and his strength far exceeded that of ordinary people. No wonder he was able to break through the outer defenses of the special agents and get here. However, in Du Mu's eyes, this level of attack was nothing special. He didn't even bother to use his skills, he simply raised his hand and firmly grasped Thor's fist. How is this possible? Saul's face was filled with shock. Even without divine power, his body is still far beyond what an ordinary human could withstand. But this person in front of him was able to block his fist so easily. Thor gritted his teeth and exerted all his strength, but he still couldn't break free from Du Mu's large hand. Looking at Thor's flushed face, Du Mu asked with interest, "You said you're the god of thunder, so you must be very resistant to electricity, right? What do you mean by this?" Before Thor could finish speaking, he felt a violent electric current surge through his body, causing his body to convulse uncontrollably. A few seconds later, his eyes rolled back, and he fell straight to the ground, his body emitting wisps of white smoke. Du Mu removed the Professor Yang ring from his finger. He looked at the lifeless Thor with disdain, and this is the god of thunder. Please vote, please read, please collect. End of this chapter. Chapter 48 U and number 039, going a bit too extreme. Chapter 48 You're going a bit too extreme. Soon, Coulson arrived at the scene with a team of SHIELD agents. He spotted Thor smoking immediately and asked with a puzzled look, "What's wrong with him?" Du Mu shrugged, he said he was the god of thunder, so I gave him a shock. Who knew he was so sensitive to electricity? The god of thunder. Coulson raised an eyebrow, clearly not believing Thor's words either. He crouched down, checked ER's breathing, and confirmed that he was still alive, but had been knocked unconscious by the electric shock. Take him away and keep him under close surveillance. Notify me immediately when he wakes up. Coulson gave orders to his agents, then turned to Du Mu, your mission remains the same, continue to keep an eye on Hammer. Out. Du Mu returned to the recliner and picked up the comic book again. Other agents busied themselves dealing with the scene, lifting the unconscious Thor and carrying him away. The next day, Du Mu received a message from Coulson saying that Thor had woken up and needed his help. When Du Mu arrived outside the temporary confinement room, he saw Coulson interrogating Saul. Thor wouldn't listen to a word, shouting, "Mortals, give me back Mjolnir. If you give him back, when I return to Asgard and become king, you'll be richly rewarded." This sounds just like Qin Shi Huang giving money. Coulson's ears were throbbing from the noise, and seeing that communication was impossible, he had no choice but to give up. Upon seeing Du Mu, Coulson rubbed his temples and sighed, "This guy won't tell us anything, he just keeps asking for Mjolnir." I looked it up, Mjolnir is Thor's hammer in Norse mythology, the weapon of the thunder god Thor. Looks like this guy's really into character. Du Mu chuckled, and with a touch of curiosity, peered through the observation window at Saul, who was shouting and yelling inside. NPC, Thor Odinson. Codename, Thor. Favorability, -10. Evaluation, the god of hammers, for the glory of the northern gods, the Marvel Uchiha clan, whose power increases with each family member sacrificed. Status, divine power sealed. Holy crap, this guy really is Thor. Du Mu was greatly surprised. Vampires are one thing, but now even gods from Norse mythology are popping up. So, that hammer outside must be Thor's hammer. Du Mu's mind raced, and he said to Coulson, "Let me go in and talk to him." Without waiting for Coulson's response, he pushed open the door and went into the solitary confinement room. Upon seeing Du Mu's arrival, Sol, who had been shouting excitedly, immediately stopped. "It's you!" Thor recognized Du Mu and roared angrily, "You despicable mortal! How dare you ambush the great god of thunder?" Du Mu raised an eyebrow. The god of thunder can be stunned by electricity. Sodden was momentarily speechless, a hint of embarrassment flashing across his face. He stubbornly argued, "That's because my divine power is sealed. As long as I get back Mjolnir, I can regain my divine power." NPC Thor Odinson has given you a new quest. Quest: Mortal Thor. Objective: help Thor, who has lost his divine powers, obtain Mjolnir. Rewards: experience points plus 500, Thor's favor ability plus 30, item *1. Looking at the task prompt in front of him, Du Mu chuckled and said, "It's not impossible for me to help you get the hammer, but you have to tell me how you ended up here first." "Really? You're willing to help me?" Thor's eyes lit up, as if he had grasped at a straw. At that moment, eager to get his hammer back, he didn't care about hiding anything and immediately told everyone about his experience. In short, Thor was provoked by the frost giants on his coronation day. Enraged, he led his forces to storm Jotunheim, triggering a war between the two worlds. This angered his father, who stripped him of his divine powers and banished him to Earth, hammer and all. Du Mu was speechless. As a god who has lived for thousands of years, Thor has participated in countless battles and is undoubtedly a warrior with extensive war experience. However, thousands of years of experience led Thor to recklessly charge into the enemy's lair. Is this guy's brain all muscle? Du Mu shook his head. A few people dared to break into the enemy's base camp. No wonder your father was so angry. Do you also think I shouldn't have done that? Thor was quite unconvinced. Even though it was the frost giants of Jotunheim who provoked them first, he retaliated in kind, but his father chose to exile him in order to maintain peace. Du Mu shook his head. "No, I just think your method is too inefficient. Can't your rainbow bridge teleport people away? Why not just teleport the leader of Jotunheim to your territory and then have a righteous gang fight? Wouldn't that be better?" Thor. Oh right, how come I didn't think of that? Du Mu continued, "If all else fails, we can also send tens of thousands of nuclear bombs to their territory, ensuring they won't dare to breathe loudly again." He's probably out of breath. Thor hesitated. That's not a good idea. Asgard, where he lived, was a high-tech civilization, so naturally they knew what nuclear bombs were. Foolish. Didn't your father make it clear to you that he wants nuclear peace? Du Mu, looking exasperated by their lack of ambition, said, "There's a saying that goes, truth only exists within the range of cannons. Only by hurting them will they fear you. If that were to happen, Jotunheim would cease to exist, and they would be gone." Thor muttered to himself. As a member of the radical faction, he felt that Du Mu was a bit too extreme. "That's probably not what my father meant," Thor said, scratching his head. Du Mu curled his lip. "You say Asgard is the strongest in the 9 realms, do you really think that strength was achieved through peace?" Saul was speechless for a moment and could not refute it. "Is that really what father meant?" Du Mu waved his hand. "Forget it, think about it yourself. I'll take you to get the hammer first." "It is good." Upon hearing the word hammer, Thor immediately put aside his doubts and excitedly followed Du Mu out of the solitary confinement cell. Coulson didn't stop him. With Du Mu there, Thor posed no threat whatsoever. He looked at Du Mu and said, "Do you really think he's some kind of thunder god? Let him give it a try." Du Mu shrugged and led Thor back to the area where the hammer was. "Mjolnir. My old friend." When Thor saw the hammer, his eyes lit up with ecstatic joy, and he strode over to it. "Watch closely, mortals!" Thor roared with confidence, his desire to regain his strength filling him as he reached out his right hand and grasped the short, leather-covered handle of the hammer. He took a deep breath and began to pull the hammer up with force. however. The hammer remained completely still. Thor's ecstatic expression froze instantly, turning into disbelief. Unwilling to give up, he exerted his strength again, veins bulging on his forehead, pulling upwards with all his might. No matter how hard he tried, the hammer remained firmly in place, without even lifting a sliver. After several futile attempts, Thor finally let go in despair. He staggered back a step, his knees buckled, and he collapsed to his knees on the muddy ground with a thud, roaring to the sky. Do not. End of this chapter. Chapter 49 Loki, the Two-Dagger Melee Mage. Chapter 49 Loki, the Two-Dagger Melee Mage. Waaya, my Mjolnir, waaya, this is so delicious. Inside the confinement room, Saul devoured a hamburger while crying like a baby thousands of years old. A dozen or so hamburger wrappers were scattered at his feet, piled up like a small mountain. Du Mu raised an eyebrow. Is this the god of thunder or the god of food? He can eat so much. Du Mu comforted him, saying, it's all right. It's normal to have trouble getting an erection right away. Men often experience this as they get older, let alone someone who's thousands of years old like you. You do not understand. Thor raised his head in grief and indignation, saw still smeared on his lips, if I can't lift Mjolnir, it means it no longer acknowledges me as its master. I've lost the right to own it. His heartbroken appearance made it seem as if his girlfriend had run off with someone else. Du Mu analyzed, actually, you don't need to be discouraged. Maybe you just haven't met the conditions to lift the hammer yet. Perhaps this is your father's test for you. Du Mu also found it hard to believe that Thor's father, Odin, the king of the gods, would abandon Thor. After all, it's an account that's been nurtured for thousands of years, he certainly wouldn't be willing to destroy it like that. Really? Saul wiped the sauce from his mouth with his hand, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Du Mu nodded, although you're not very bright, you're still your father's son, and given his age, he probably won't be able to create a new title. If he doesn't inherit the throne from you, who else can he give it to? Thor. It feels like I've been scolded. Humph. A cold snort suddenly rang out. Du Mu looked in the direction of the sound and saw a figure wearing a green coat who had appeared in the confinement room at some point. Strangely, the agents outside the confinement room did not react at all, as if they could not see the person at all. Du Mu immediately checked the information about this mysterious person. NPC, Loki Odinson, Laufeyson. Codename, God of Deception. Fav ability, 0. Evaluation, God of Lies, God of Acting, number 1 mage in the 9 realms, despicable kidney slayer. Status, under illusionary invisibility. Alright, another god from Norse mythology. Du Mu was already used to it. Judging from Loki's state, he must have used some kind of magic to become invisible, which is why the other agents didn't notice his presence. However, Du Mu possessed the ability to see through illusions, and Loki's illusions had no effect on him whatsoever. At this moment, Loki also noticed Du Mu's gaze on him, but he remained completely calm. He was very confident in his illusion magic. Apart from his own parents, almost no one could see through his illusions, let alone in a remote place like Earth, where the mortal in front of him just happened to be looking over. Loki gave a wicked smile and stared at Du Mu with full confidence. To everyone's surprise, Du Mu glared back and asked, "What are you looking at?" Loki. Loki remained silent for a moment, then deliberately dispelled part of the illusion to reveal himself, and said arrogantly, "Mortal, you are quite good, to be able to sense my presence." Thor, who was still grieving over his hamburger, suddenly saw Loki appear. His face lit up with surprise and joy. He stood up abruptly and grabbed Loki's arm with his greasy hands. "Loki, Jeanne d'Arc." Loki's face twitched as he looked at the oil and saw stains that had instantly smeared on his clothes. But he held back and said in a low voice, "I had to come." As he spoke, Loki's eyes revealed a mixture of sadness, helplessness, struggle, and pain, like a pie chart. It's hard to imagine that a person's eyes could express so many emotions. Seeing Loki's expression, Thor's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly swallowed the hamburger in his mouth. What happened? Have those frost giants from Jotunheim attacked? Yes, Asgard and Jotunheim are currently at war. Loki nodded heavily, a look of grief on his face, his emotions gradually building to a climax. Father was old, and the threat of renewed war, coupled with the pain of your expulsion, was too much for him to bear. In the end, he couldn't hold on any longer and left us. What? Thor was struck dumb, his eyes wide with rage. My father, he's dead. Seeing Thor's devastated expression, Loki was secretly overjoyed, but outwardly appeared even more sorrowful. Just as he was about to add fuel to the fire and completely extinguish Thor's thoughts of returning. Suddenly, a hand patted Loki on the shoulder, interrupting his build-up of emotions. Little brother, have you forgotten about me? Doomew's expression was unfriendly. You two are just telling stories and putting on a melodramatic show, acting like the camera doesn't exist, hey? Loki's carefully crafted atmosphere was interrupted, and a surge of anger rose within him. His eyes swept coldly toward Doomew. Insolent mortal! How dare you interrupt the conversation of the gods? Doomew laughed, although your name is Loki, you don't need to make up a story about a fragile old father. Loki couldn't understand his words, but he knew that Doomew was exposing his lies. He snorted coldly, reached out and grabbed Doomew's arm, trying to break it to teach this mortal a lesson. When I tried to pry it open, I couldn't budge it at all. Okay. A hint of surprise flashed in Loki's eyes. As an Asgardian and a descendant of the frost giants, his physique far surpasses the peak of human potential. How could I not be able to pry open the arm of the human in front of me? But Loki quickly regained his senses and sneered, no wonder you could see through my illusions. You're no ordinary mortal. It's just a pity that you're facing a sorcerer. As he spoke, two daggers appeared out of thin air in Loki's hands, and he plunged them fiercely into Doomew's abdomen. Doomew, What an authentic mage combat style! Thai boxing warning! Without saying a word, Doomew immediately elbowed him. After several enhancements, Doomew's strength increased even further. Before Loki could even see what he was doing, he was elbowed off the ground, his two daggers fell to the floor, and he slammed heavily against the wall of the solitary confinement cell, creating a small crater with cracks spreading outwards like a spider web. However, Loki's physique was not bad either. He took a blow from Doomew's elbow without much damage to his face. Loki struggled to his feet, angrily shouting, "Enough! You damned mortal! I am a great god!" Before he could finish speaking, Doomew suddenly pounced on him and slammed his knee into his face. While Loki was stunned and fell to the ground, Doomew grabbed his right leg, exerted force, lifted him up, and slammed him hard against the ground. Thud! 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 Terrifying impacts rang out in succession, and the solitary confinement cell was smashed into craters. Thor wanted to stop him, but seeing how ruthless Doomew was, he retreated. It's okay, his younger brother has always been resilient to beatings, he can just bear it. After being smashed dozens of times, Loki's body finally went limp, and Doomew then released his grip and threw him to the ground. He looked at Loki lying on the ground and said with disdain, "This guy calls himself a god. Thor, That sounds so familiar." Thank you so much to reader Yoho2Sounds for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 50 This guy is hopeless. Chapter 50 This guy is hopeless. The commotion immediately attracted the attention of nearby SHIELD agents. Coulson rushed over upon hearing the news. Looking at the chaotic state of the solitary confinement cell, he asked with surprise and uncertainty, "What happened here?" Doomew pointed to Loki on the ground, whose illusion had lost its effect. "Look, we've caught another intruder. This one claims to be Loki. Coulson. Why are all these lunatics who claim to be gods from Norse mythology flocking here? Yesterday we had Thor, the god of thunder, today we have Loki, the god of mischief. Could the next one be Odin, the king of the gods?" When Coulson learned that Loki had used the legendary magic and confirmed it by checking the surveillance footage, his expression immediately turned serious. He said in a deep voice, "It seems this matter is much more complicated than we imagined. I need to ask the director for more support." Coulson immediately ordered his agents to keep the unconscious Loki under control and imprison him along with Thor. And so, Thor and Loki, these two unfortunate brothers, became cellmates. Thor didn't mind at all, in fact, he thought it was quite nice to have Loki by his side. The riots Loki instigated and the magical abilities he displayed quickly drew the attention of Nick Fury, who was far away at headquarters. He immediately upgraded the emergency response level and dispatched more personnel to the area. Among them was Clint Barton, a level 7 agent codenamed Hawkeye. NPC, Clint Barton. Codename, Hawkeye. Fav Hour Ability, 40. Evaluation, Avengers Mascot, 100% accuracy, 100% win rate in team fights. So, can anyone tell me what kind of emergency is so urgent that it would make a poor wretch who was just about to enjoy his vacation fly halfway around the world back? At this moment, Clint, carrying his beloved compound bow, looked extremely displeased. He had worked at SHIELD for so long, and this was the first time he had a vacation, but Nick Fury suddenly called him back to work overtime. It's easy to imagine how much resentment Clint is feeling right now. "That damned one-eyed slave owner," Coulson explained, "we discovered an alien object, as well as two aliens who appear to be gods." Clint paused for a moment. He's only on vacation for a few days, and S.H.I.E.L.D's operations have already expanded to aliens. "Clint, long time no see," Du Mu greeted Clint from the side. Clint was a little surprised. "It's you, Du Mu." His relationship with Du Mu can be described as one of unexpected friendship after a conflict. Of course, this isn't a real fight, it's just a friendly competition. They are both renowned sharpshooters in SHIELD. After one of their encounters, Clint suggested they have a shooting contest, and Du Mu agreed without much thought. They agreed to each bring out their best weapons, set up a tiny target a few hundred meters away, and attack simultaneously based on a timer countdown, to see who could shoot faster and more accurately. Clint naturally drew his bow and arrow, and the instant the countdown reached 0, he released the arrow, hitting the target precisely. However, he still lost in the end. The reason is simple. Suddenly, Du Mu pulled out a rocket launcher and blasted the target area along with the arrow he had fired. Afterwards, this guy even had the nerve to say that it was his best sniper rifle, only that the caliber was a bit too big and the bullets were a bit too big. From that moment on, Clint completely abandoned any thought of competing with Du Mu. With Clint, the Hawkeye, in charge, Du Mu could continue to slack off and read comic books, occasionally going to chat with Thor and inquire about things beyond Earth. According to Thor, there are 9 great realms in the universe. These nations are connected to each other through the world tree, yet they maintain a delicate balance and generally do not interfere with each other. This includes Midgard, the Earth where Du Mu is located, Asgard, Thor's homeland, Jotunheim of the Frost Giants, and Wat Alheim of the Dwarves, among others. To freely travel between these 9 realms, one would need a time-space teleportation artifact like the Rainbow Bridge. Of course, the vast universe contains far more than just these 9 kingdoms. There are countless alien races and planetary forces, making it quite complex. System, are these all explorable areas? Du Mu asked. Yes, all areas are open, and players are free to explore anywhere. Brilliant! Du Mu once again praised the game's freedom, noting that it allowed players to freely explore even beyond Earth. He thought the system would say, "Let's explore the previous areas later." Nighttime. Mew, who was guarding the hammer, suddenly received a message. Loki has escaped from prison. Mew rushed to the scene and looked at Coulson and Clint, whose faces were solemn. "What's the situation?" Coulson said in a deep voice, "Loki woke up not long ago. He seems to have used some kind of magic to suddenly disappear from the confinement room." Mew asked, "What about Sol?" "He's still inside, but he doesn't look quite right." Upon hearing this, Mew entered the solitary confinement room and saw Sol standing there dejectedly, his eyes vacant. Mew asked curiously, "What's wrong, Thor?" Thor's voice was low. "Loki went back to Asgard. He told me that if it weren't for me, Asgard and Jotunheim wouldn't have gone to war, and my father wouldn't have died. It's all my fault." "Then why didn't he take you with him?" "Because Loki has reached a truce with the frost giants." Sol's voice was filled with bitterness and self-abandonment, "but on the condition that I, the culprit who started the war, be banished forever to Midgard." Mew raised an eyebrow, "But didn't you say you were the rightful heir to the throne?" Thor's mood plummeted further. "Because of my recklessness, my mother has abdicated the throne to Loki, and now Loki is the king of Asgard." "Did your little brother say that?" "Yes." Mew was somewhat speechless. "Then how do you know whether what he said is true or false?" Thor said without hesitation, "Loki wouldn't lie to me. He said that during my exile, he led the Asgardian army against the frost giants, charging in and out of Jotunheim 7 times and killing millions of frost giants before reaching this agreement with Laufey, the frost giant king." Mew. "Now I'm 100% sure it's fake. Does Loki really think he's a descendant of the god of war? He even killed millions of frost giants. This is even more outrageous than Nick Fury performing a pole dance at SHIELD." Mew couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you notice anything wrong?" Thor nodded heavily and said seriously, "I've found it. There aren't that many frost giants in Jotunheim. Loki must have miscounted." Mew. "Forget it, this guy is beyond saving." End of this chapter. Chapter 51 The Nine-Headed Hydra and Number 039, S Wealth Code. Chapter 51 The Secret to Hydra's Wealth. It's unclear where Thor got his unfounded confidence in Loki, but he actually believed Loki's lies without question. Mew was too lazy to persuade him anymore. Perhaps this was just a bit of fun between the two brothers. Just then, Coulson suddenly opened the door to the solitary confinement cell and said to Sol, "Someone has come to get you. You can leave now. Can you go?" Thor scratched his head in surprise and followed Coulson out. "Hey, Dr. Donald, I'm here to take you back." The person who came to pick up Thor was an astrophysicist named Sylvig. He helped Thor forge a false identity to deceive SHIELD, but little did he know that S.H.I.E.L.'s system had already seen through it. But Coulson didn't point it out, letting Sylvig take Thor away. Clint watched the two figures disappear into the distance and asked, "Are we just going to let them go like that? There's no point in keeping Sol locked up here." Coulson calmly replied, "Let's see what they're planning to do first, Agent Mew. You'll be in charge of monitoring them from now on." Row. Mew, who didn't want to be stuck with that hammer all the time, readily agreed. As he walked out of the base, he bumped into a familiar bald man. "Hey, isn't this Agent Sitwell?" Mew stepped forward to greet him. The bald man was none other than the Sitwell agent he had met in Pierce's office. NPC, Sitwell. Favorability, -30. Evaluation, Member of Hydra. "It's you." Upon seeing Mew's arrival, Sitwell's expression was as if he had just eaten a magic pill. Clearly, he already knew that Mew had stolen his wallet. Mew said warmly, "Don't be so formal. We're family." Sitwell narrowed his eyes and said warily, I know we're both part of SHIELD, but we don't seem to know each other very well. Stop pretending. Du Mu pursed his lips, then casually put his hand on Sitwell's shoulder and whispered in his ear. Long live Hydra! Sitwell froze abruptly, hurriedly looking around to make sure no one was watching before letting out a sigh of relief. He glared angrily at Du Mu. Are you crazy? What if we get exposed by saying this in a place like this? Du Mu revealed a displeased expression. Why aren't you responding to the slogans? Are you perhaps an shield mole hidden within Hydra? As he spoke, he pulled out the golden desert eagle from his pocket. Sitwell, long live Hydra! Very good, you're one of us. With a flick of his wrist, Du Mu's golden desert eagle vanished. Sitwell's lips twitched. If he weren't outmatched by Du Mu, he would have turned against him long ago. Du Mu adopted a serious expression. I have an important task for you now, and I need your cooperation. Sitwell asked in confusion, cooperate with what? It's simple, just hand over your car and your wallet. Sitwell was bewildered. What task would require his wallet? Before he could speak, Du Mu whispered, Long live Hydra! Sitwell, long live Hydra! One of Hydra's ironclad rules is to stay out of trouble, which is precisely the secret to their years of infiltration of SHIELD without revealing their presence. As long as the slogan is shouted, they are one of us and must cooperate unconditionally. Since Du Mu had already recited the slogan, Sitwell had no choice but to reluctantly hand over his car keys and wallet. Sitwell watched Du Mu's departing figure, his mood utterly terrible. This was inexplicable, it felt like he'd been robbed. Having discovered the secret to Hydra's wealth, Du Mu drove his car from Sitwell to the town of Puente Antique, dozens of kilometers away. He didn't go looking for Saul immediately, but instead found a hotel to stay in first. Well, the accommodation fee naturally came from Sitwell's wallet as well. The next day, Du Mu found Saul in the town. The Thunder God was sitting in a pizzeria, enjoying his meal with a satisfied expression. Whether it was Du Mu's imagination or not, he felt that Thor seemed a bit rounder than when he first met him. But thinking about it, it's normal. After all, Thor eats 5 meals a day in solitary confinement, and every meal is high-calorie fried food. Plus, Thor is now just a mortal, so it's reasonable for him to gain weight. Besides Saul, besides Sylvie from last night, there was a long-haired woman and a bespectacled girl who looked like she was destined for poverty. Du Mu walked straight into the pizzeria, pulled up a chair, sat down at their table, and unceremoniously picked up a slice of pizza and started eating. Hey, this is our pizza, the girl with glasses immediately protested. While eating his pizza, Du Mu said with a smile, You forged information to take away the suspect, so I have the right to arrest you all. Upon hearing this, the 3 men's expressions changed drastically, and they immediately realized Du Mu's identity. The long-haired woman named Jane frowned and questioned, Your SHIELD stole our research equipment and experimental data first. Now you want to arrest us? Is this how domineering your SHIELD is? Yes. Upon seeing Du Mu's straightforward admission, the 3 of them were instantly speechless. They had expected Du Mu to at least offer some explanation, but he didn't even bother to pretend. Thor, on the other hand, was quite unreserved. Upon seeing Du Mu's arrival, he asked in a casual manner, Du Mu, you're here. What can I do for you? Du Mu, it's nothing serious, we were just sent to monitor you. Is it so direct? The 3 of them were speechless, unsure whether to continue the previous topic. But they soon discovered that Du Mu seemed to have no real intentions and was simply there to freeload. So the group grew bolder and started talking about their first encounter with Thor. They all thought Thor was mentally ill and, in a panic, tasered him with a taser. Du Mu nodded as he ate. It's common knowledge that Thor is afraid of electricity, which makes perfect sense. After that, Saul was taken in and kept by Jane, who took care of all his needs, including food, clothing, and shelter. Of course, not everyone can do this. First, you need to have Thor's looks and physique. If Thor were even a little less handsome, he'd probably be sent to a mental hospital the next day, only to be able to brag to his fellow patients that he's the god of thunder, only to find that the people in the next bed are all Hephaestus, Zeus, Apollo, and Poseidon. Just as the group was chatting enthusiastically, a knocking sound suddenly came from the glass. The crowd looked in the direction of the sound and saw 4 oddly dressed men and women standing outside the pizzeria, waving excitedly at Saul. Upon seeing the visitor, Sultan immediately stood up excitedly. "My friends, what brings you here?" Mew glanced at the information of the 4 people and found that they were all warriors from Asgard, the warriors 3 of Asgard, Hogun, Fandral, and Volstagg, as well as the female warrior Sif. Sif said seriously, "Thor, we're here to take you back to Asgard." Thor paused for a moment, then shook his head. "You know I can't go back because my mistakes caused Asgard to go to war with Jotunheim, and my father died as a result. I must continue to be exiled." When he got to the sad part, Thor's eyes filled with tears, and he took a few more big bites of pizza. Upon hearing Thor's words, Sif and the others showed expressions of surprise. "Thor, who told you the king of the gods is dead? He's just in a deep slumber." "My father isn't dead." Thor was shocked, even freezing in his pizza-eating motion, "but Loki clearly told me that my father was dead." "Loki deceived you," Sif said, frowning. She then briefly recounted everything that had happened in Asgard after Thor's banishment. Listening to Sif's account, Thor realized that he had been deceived by Loki. Thor asked in astonishment, "So, Loki didn't kill millions of frost giants?" Mew. Dude, is that the point? End of this chapter. Chapter 52. Whether Loki has changed or not is unknown, but you and number 039, VE changed quite quickly. Chapter 52. Whether Loki has changed or not is unknown, but you've changed quite quickly. Why did Loki deceive me? Thor never expected that Loki had lied to him. Mew said, "Is there any need to think about it? They definitely don't want you to go back to Asgard to compete for the throne. The struggle for the crown prince has always been like this." Thor was somewhat distressed, "But I never intended to compete with Loki for the throne." "Just because you don't think that way doesn't mean Loki doesn't think that way, especially since he's an adopted son and has no right to inherit." "What?" Thor's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Mew. "You're saying Loki is an adopted son?" Mew nodded, "That's right, didn't you know? Loki isn't your father's biological son." "Impossible, absolutely impossible." Thor waved his hand in denial without hesitation and said to Mew, "You must be joking. Loki and I look almost exactly alike, how could we not be brothers?" Mew. It seems this guy not only has a mental disability, but also some eye problems. Mew stated frankly, "It's true, Loki is indeed not your biological brother, and he is actually the son of Laufey, the frost giant king. He wasn't making this up, that's exactly how the Loki message was written." Upon hearing this, Sif and the warriors 3 of Asgard were stunned. Was this something they could hear? Thor clearly didn't believe this and was about to refute it when suddenly a loud bang came from the sky. Boom! Someone has opened the Rainbow Bridge. Sif immediately frowned and became alert. Mew asked in surprise, "Do you have anyone else coming?" "No." Hogun shook his head, "Loki is now the new king of Asgard. We all came to see Thor without his knowledge. Only Heimdall knows about this." Just then, Mew's communicator rang. It was an emergency call from Coulson. Mew. "We've been attacked by a mysterious suit of armor, and we've lost quite a few men. It's heading in your direction now, so be careful." "Understood." After Mew hung up the call, the system's voice immediately sounded. "Attention players, the boss has spawned. Objective, defeat the destroyer, Loki version. Rewards depend on the damage players deal to the boss. The higher the damage, the richer the rewards. The group quickly left the pizzeria and saw a huge silver humanoid suit of armor approaching them from afar. It's the Destroyer. Thor recognized the armor at a glance. What is the Destroyer? Mew asked, not understanding. Thor explained, that was my father's armor, and the guardian of the vaults of Asgard. Only my father's weapon, Gungnir, the Spear of Eternity, can wield the Destroyer. The Spear of Eternity is now in Loki's hands, and only he can control the Destroyer, Sif said immediately. Damn it, Loki isn't planning to use the Destroyer to kill Thor, is he? Fandral had never had a good impression of Loki, and his mind instantly conjured up a plot of an adopted son murdering his brother to seize the throne. Impossible. Thor firmly denied it, saying, although Loki likes to lie, play pranks, and even stabbed me with a knife, I know Loki is a good boy, my dearest brother, and he would never do such a thing. Before the words were even finished, the Destroyer was already upon them. Upon seeing Thor and the others, the metal strips on the Destroyer's face quickly flipped open, revealing an empty head, and a powerful energy surged rapidly at the core of its head. Get out of the way! Sif shouted, and the others scattered to the side. Boom! A beam of intense energy struck their original spot, instantly melting a huge, charred crater into the asphalt road surface. Everyone gasped as they gazed at the terrifying, steaming pit. Mew pondered for 2 seconds, how about we hand Thor over? Maybe Loki will make the Destroyer retreat once he gets Thor. After all, he's Thor's closest brother and won't kill him. Upon hearing this, Thor paused for a moment, then said indignantly, you're right. It seems Loki has indeed changed. He's no longer the good brother I knew. We must stop him. Everyone, I don't know if Loki has changed, but your face certainly changes quickly. For Asgard. Without hesitation, the warriors three charged toward the Destroyer, swinging their weapons and slashing fiercely at its metal body. However, their attacks were completely ineffective, failing to leave even a scratch on the Destroyer. Bang! With a sudden swing of its massive arm, the three Guasha masters were unable to dodge in time and were instantly sent flying dozens of meters away by the terrifying force, crashing into a shop and a car in the distance. Mew raised an eyebrow. That car looked like one he had gotten from Sitwell. Just then, Sif leaped up from behind the Destroyer and landed nimbly on its back. She gripped a spear tightly with both hands, and with all her might, she pierced the Destroyer's neck, embedding it deep into the asphalt below, pinning it to the ground. However, before Sif could even catch her breath, the Destroyer moved again, its metal strips spinning rapidly, instantly turning its back into its front, as powerful energy quickly gathered at its core. Sif's expression changed drastically. Without thinking, she leaped backward off the Destroyer's body. Boom! The next moment, a beam of scorching energy grazed Sif's hair and struck her from above, a near miss. Sif immediately distanced herself after landing, her eyes filled with an unprecedented solemnity. The Destroyer's terrifying power inspires despair. Let alone resisting its attack, even if it stood still and let the attack come, it couldn't shake its indestructible armor in the slightest. How is this played? The Destroyer yanked the spears pinning him to his body, turned to Sif, and energy surged and gathered once more within the empty helmet. Just as the Destroyer was about to unleash its energy beam, an orange-red beam struck the Destroyer directly. Boom! With a tremendous roar, the Destroyer's massive body was instantly blasted off the ground and crashed to the ground. Sif looked over and saw a similarly huge military green mech standing not far away, holding a cool-looking plasma railgun in its hand. What is this? Everyone was shocked. Jane and several other Earthlings were equally bewildered. They had been in New Mexico for some time, so they were unaware of what had happened in Harlem that night. As the Destroyer struggled to get up, the core of the plasma railgun in BT's hand hummed again, and the violent orange-red energy rapidly gathered at the muzzle. Boom! The next moment, plasma cannonballs shot out and instantly slammed into the chest of the destroyer, who had just propped up his upper body. The immense kinetic energy slammed it back to the ground, the impact point exploding into a blinding burst of plasma sparks, with energy turbulence scattering everywhere. However, as the lightning and smoke dissipated slightly, the destroyer's gleaming silver armor surface had only a few charred burn marks, but its overall structure remained as solid as ever, clearly indicating that it had not suffered much damage. Thank you so much to reader for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 53 The God of Thunder BT, for the glory of the Northern God. Chapter 53 The God of Thunder BT, for the glory of the Northern God. As expected of Odin's armor, the King of the Gods, it's incredibly tough. Looking at the destroyer standing up again, Mew couldn't help but sigh. It's worth noting that the plasma railgun mounted on the BT is capable of killing even monsters like the Abomination. But even after those two full-force attacks, the destroyer only suffered a few scratches. Its defensive capabilities are simply outrageous. Meanwhile, Loki, far away in Asgard, instantly sensed through the destroyer that the human inside BT was actually Mew, and was immediately enraged. He has not forgotten the humiliation this human being brought him. In all his life, apart from his brother Thor, this was the first time he had ever been beaten so badly. You know, even his parents never beat him like that. Moreover, the other party is just a mere mortal. Loki swore in his heart that this was absolutely the last time, and no one would ever beat him like that again, not even his foolish brother. Kill him! Loki immediately issued commands to the destroyer. The destroyer suddenly stood up, its head instantly locking onto BT's position, and the energy light at its core surged wildly. Boom! A blazing, blinding beam of energy suddenly tore through the air and hurtled straight toward BT. Knowing he couldn't fight head-on, Mew controlled BT to perform a tactical roll to the side to dodge, while simultaneously retracting the plasma railgun. The engine roared, and BT drew an arc around the destroyer at an astonishing speed, quickly closing the distance. Immediately afterwards, BT leaped high into the air and slammed his massive metal fist into the destroyer's head. Clang! A metallic clanging sound rang out. The destroyer's head was knocked askew by a punch, and the energy beam from its head immediately lost its aim, shooting straight into the ground next to it and melting a huge crater. Immediately, Mew controlled BT to pull out the Titan Greatsword, just like Sif did, and inserted the Greatsword into the gaps in the destroyer's armor, fixing it in place. Then he swung his two iron fists and smashed the destroyer repeatedly. Despite the incredible power of BT's iron fist, it only produced a dull thud when it landed on the destroyer, clearly causing no real damage. Just then, the metal strips on the destroyer's body began to writhe and surge rapidly, forcibly squeezing out the Titan Greatsword that was stuck in its body. It immediately retaliated with a punch, slamming it heavily onto BT's body. The protective shield has been activated. As BT's voice faded, the machine was instantly covered with an energy shield, blocking the destroyer's fist. But the destroyer's offensive did not stop. The metal bar on its head suddenly unfolded, and its core, facing the BT that was right next to it, fired a short-range energy beam. Boom! The energy beam slammed solidly into BT's energy shield, creating violent energy ripples. Warning! Energy shield strength reduced by 12%. BT immediately reported to Mew. Mew controlled BT to firmly press down on the destroyer's head, forcing its energy beam to shoot into the sky. He thought to himself, this can't go on. BT's energy probably won't last much longer. I need to find a more powerful weapon. Suddenly, he had a good idea. Laugh! Suddenly, the cockpit canopy on BT's chest popped open, and Mew jumped out. The moment he landed, a strange magnet gleaming with metallic luster appeared in his hand. Item: Powerful magnet, can attract specific metal objects within a 50 km radius, no larger than 1 meter. This is the system reward that Du Mu received for helping Thor obtain Thor's hammer. As soon as Du Mu took out the powerful magnet, a sharp whistling sound came from afar. All anyone saw was a blur, and a silver hammer was firmly attached to the powerful magnet in Du Mu's hand. Mjolnir. Sultan immediately gasped in surprise. That's right, what Du Mu attracted with the powerful magnet was Thor's hammer. However, Du Mu did not meet the requirements for Thor's hammer. The moment the powerful magnet attracted him, he felt an immense force, and Thor's hammer crashed uncontrollably to the ground. Upon seeing this, Thor immediately shouted, "No, no one but me can lift Mjolnir." Du Mu chuckled, "Who says it has to be a person lifting it up?" Thor. At that very moment, the destroyer broke free from BT's control. Its head glowed dangerously again, and an energy beam was poised to strike, locking onto Du Mu, who had broken free from the BT. Clang! A deafening explosion rang in everyone's ears. The destroyer's massive metal body was smashed into the sky, arcing through the air before crashing heavily to the ground. At this moment, BT's mechanical hand was tightly gripping Thor's hammer, which even Thor couldn't lift. Odin's beard. Thor was dumbfounded, as if he had seen a ghost. That's what makes Thor's hammer so special. Even a human-operated crane couldn't move Thor's hammer an inch, but the hooks inside the room could easily lift it. In short, only non-living beings can lift Thor's hammer, and any intervention will trigger the spell on Thor's hammer. Du Mu had learned this information from Sol and immediately came up with this plan. Since humans cannot control it, let non-living machines do it, such as his super artificial intelligence BT. And as it turns out, this method does work. As expected, the real game strategy is about how to turn bugs into a reasonable mechanism. Du Mu sighed inwardly. At this moment, Thor's hammer looked like a hammer in BT's huge mechanical hand. BT raised Mjolnir to the sky and shouted, "I am Thor, the great god of thunder, son of Odin, for the glory of the northern gods." Thor, dot. Loki, dot. Everyone, dot. Thor's face turned green as he looked at Du Mu. Du Mu innocently spread his hands, "Don't look at me, this has nothing to do with me." Bullshit. Except for the last line, the rest of the lines are exactly the same as what I shouted back then, and you even said it has nothing to do with you. Sol suspects that Du Mu was responsible, and there is already evidence. Seeing the energy surging in the destroyer's brain, BT gave it no chance, charging forward and swinging Thor's hammer down again. Clang! With the help of Thor's hammer, BT easily smashed down the destroyer. BT's offensive never stopped. It stomped heavily on the destroyer's metal body with one foot, pinning it firmly to the ground, and swung its mechanical arm high with Thor's hammer, aiming to smash it down on the destroyer's head. Clang! 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 In an instant, only a series of crisp hammering sounds remained on the entire battlefield. Seeing his hammer almost smoking from being swung around so much, Thor felt extremely distressed. "That's my beloved Mjolnir. Be gentle with me. I'm begging for your monthly votes and to keep reading." End of this chapter. Chapter 54 unlocks the blue bar. Chapter 54 unlocks the blue bar. Clang! 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 Although BT can lift Thor's hammer, it cannot use its power, it can only use it as a hammer to beat the destroyer. Thankfully, Thor's hammer is tough enough, otherwise it wouldn't have been able to withstand such a construction method. However, despite BT's relentless hammering, the destroyer's surface remained unchanged, without even a dent. Thor, disregarding his heartache over the hammer, quickly reminded Du Mu, "The destroyer is forged from a special metal and is enhanced by my father's magic. It not only possesses energy attacks that can destroy almost everything, but also defenses that can withstand almost any attack. It is impossible for such an attack to harm it." Goodness, it's the combination of the strongest spear and the strongest shield, isn't it? Then the problem is coming. Who will win when the sharpest spear attacks the strongest shield? Du Mu narrowed his eyes, stopped BT from hitting him uselessly, and stepped forward to say, Loki, I heard that you were adopted by Odin. These words travelled through the destroyer into the throne room of Asgard, and Loki's expression, which had been one of complete control, instantly froze. This was the truth he had only recently learned, and it was one of the secrets he least wanted to be mentioned. How did this mortal know that? Du Mu's voice did not stop, and he continued, I also heard that you are from the frost giant race, and that you are Law Fei's biological son. Take my advice, instead of wasting your time here, why don't you go back to Jotunheim and kill Law Fei? Then you'll be the rightful king of Jotunheim, and the throne of Asgard can be left to Thor. Asshole! Loki was instantly struck where it hurt and flew into a rage. It's not surprising that Loki lost control of his emotions, since in his past mind, the frost giants were a bunch of clowns who couldn't be brought to the table. In the end, I discovered that the clown was actually myself. This is like a staunch white supremacist who accidentally discovers he is a bleached black person and immediately breaks down. Du Mu's mention of Thor inheriting the throne of Asgard only added fuel to the fire. At this moment, Loki's killing intent towards Du Mu reached its peak. Crush this damned mortal! Loki roared and slammed the Spear of Eternity into the ground. At the same time, the destroyer's armor suddenly ripped open, withstanding the BT's continuous heavy hammer blows, and an unprecedentedly dazzling light erupted from the core of its head. Its energy level far exceeds that of any previous attack. Warning! High energy reaction detected ahead. Energy level is rapidly increasing. BT's alarm sounded urgently. Boom! The next moment, a beam of energy filled with destructive power suddenly erupted, shooting straight at Du Mu's location. BT! As Du Mu finished speaking. At the critical moment, BT's massive body instantly shifted to the side, forcefully blocking Du Mu's path. It raised Thor's hammer and pressed it forward with all its might. The destroyer's beam of light, powerful enough to melt steel, struck Thor's hammer but could not advance an inch further. Believe me! BT's cold, mechanical voice rang out. Immediately, an invisible energy shield enveloped BT's entire body, while its leg thrusters emitted dazzling tail flames, using Thor's hammer to forcefully withstand the destroyer's energy beam. Little brother, you're getting anxious. Du Mu stood behind BT, not only unafraid but also continuing to provoke them. Upon hearing this, Loki nearly ground his teeth to powder. He gripped the Spear of Eternity and unleashed the destroyer with all his might. The energy fluctuations at the core of the destroyer became increasingly violent, and its enormous power even rebounded back onto itself, forcefully carving two deep craters into the solid ground beneath its feet. Full power propulsion. All the thrusters at the rear of the BT start simultaneously. With its thrusters operating at full power, BT defied the terrifying energy surge and charged straight up to the destroyer. Oh no! Loki instantly realized he had fallen into a trap. However, by the time he tried to stop it, it was too late. Without pausing, BT gripped Thor's hammer tightly with both arms and thrust it forcefully into the destroyer's wide-open head. The moment the hammer had pierced through, the surging energy within the destroyer's core lost its outlet, frantically squeezing and colliding inside its sturdy head, with increasingly dazzling light emanating from the gaps in the metal bars. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar. An unbearable surge of terrifying energy erupted from inside the destroyer's head. A visible, violent shockwave swept outwards, violently blasting the onlookers away and sending them crashing to the ground. When everyone struggled to lift their heads, they saw the destroyer, its body billowing with thick smoke, collapse to the ground, kicking up clouds of dust, and then completely lost all movement. You have successfully defeated the boss destroyer, Loki version. Start calculating damage rewards. Rewards are as follows: 20,000 experience points, 10 free attribute points, skill illumination, equipment golden desert eagle, item 1 day elixir, item smiling half step stun, item Felix Felicis. Skill, illumination, instantly releases light to illuminate darkness, the most powerful spell of the first mage of Middle-earth. Equipment, golden desert eagle, a desert eagle crafted from gold, part of a pair with another golden desert eagle. Item, 1 day elixir powder, the most potent poison in the world, colorless and odorless, killing without a trace. Item, smiling half step stun, after consuming it, one cannot take half a step forward or show a smile, otherwise one will explode and die. Item, Felix Felicis, a magical potion that brings good luck, enabling one to succeed in whatever they do within their capabilities. The player has acquired the relevant skills and met the energy unlock requirements. Energy points have been unlocked. Players can increase their energy points by allocating points to spirit. As the system notification sounded, Mew felt a sudden surge of special energy within his body. This is what the system refers to as energy value. In short, the blue stripe. Previously, Mew's skills did not require energy consumption and could be used freely. Now, Mew has gained a new skill that requires energy, illumination. So, I'm a mage now. Mew was overjoyed. Although he only knows one spell right now, lighting it's still a spell. Moreover, a simple illumination spell is perfectly sufficient for a mage. Congratulations, player! You have successfully leveled up. After defeating the destroyer, Mew leveled up once again. This time, he did not follow the previous free attribute point allocation scheme. Instead, 6 points are allocated to strength, and the remaining 9 points are evenly distributed among the other 3. Mew was very satisfied with his strength value, which far exceeded that of other attributes. Very good, I am now an excellent mage. After seeing the destroyer fall, Thor walked up and looked at BT in amazement, saying, "Robot, you're amazing. You actually managed to defeat the destroyer." Although BT used some tricks and was controlled by Loki, he did not unleash the destroyer's true power. But the fact that it could defeat the destroyer is enough to show how powerful BT is. Upon hearing Thor's words, BT raised Mjolnir and arrogantly shouted at Thor, "Foolish mortal, who gave you permission to speak to the god of thunder like that?" Thor. End of this chapter. Chapter 55 To Hell with Brotherhood. Chapter 55 To Hell with Brotherhood. Please continue reading. With the threat of the destroyer gone, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately afterwards, everyone worked together to pry the 3 warriors from the wall and the car, and woke up the 3 unconscious men. Thor said earnestly, "I'm going back to Asgard to settle things with Loki face to face. I can't let him continue down this wrong path any longer." Great! Upon hearing this, the Asgardian warriors were immediately invigorated. Once Thor returns, Loki's position as acting king will become illegitimate. Thor suddenly remembered his hammer and turned to Mew, pleading, "Mew, could you have your robot bring Mjolnir back to Asgard for me? I'll have Heimdall send you back after this is all over." Thor is still a mortal and cannot lift Mjolnir, so he can only rely on BT to bring it back to Asgard. NPC Thor Odinson has given you a new quest. Task: Bring a hammer. Objective: Help Thor bring Mjolnir back to Asgard. Rewards: Experience points plus 500, Thor's favor ability plus 30, item *1. Sure, I've been wanting to visit Asgard too. Mew agreed without much thought. Oh, and if possible, could you also get me the destroyer? Thor didn't finish his sentence. Looking back, they discovered that the destroyer had vanished without a trace. Hey? Where's the destroyer? I don't know, maybe it was stolen. I think Loki is the most likely suspect. Quickly. The group traveled in Jane's RV to an open area outside the town. Thor raised his head and shouted to the sky, "Heimdall! Open the rainbow bridge! He called out several times in a row. A moment later, ripples suddenly appeared in the sky, and a rainbow of light fell directly onto the mysterious pattern on the ground. Wait me back! After Thor and Jane made a promise, they walked into the Pillar of Light with several Asgardian warriors. Mew and BT followed behind. The moment he stepped into the Pillar of Light, he was swept into a dazzling spatial tunnel, his body flying rapidly under the influence of some kind of force. Before long, Mew arrived at a magnificent golden palace, outside which lay the deep and boundless universe. The quest Bring a Hammer has been completed. Rewards: 500 experience points, 30 Thor affinity, 5 health potions. Asgard map is now active. The moment Mew stepped into Asgard, the game map interface automatically unfolded. The map of Asgard has been added, but most of the area is still covered by a black mist that symbolizes the unknown. In the center of the hall lay a black man clad in golden armor. This was Heimdall, the patron god of Asgard. Heimdall! Thor rushed forward to help Heimdall up. Heimdall struggled to lift his head, his breath weak. Loki opened the rainbow bridge without permission, allowing the frost giants to enter Asgard. They're already heading towards Odin's palace. What? Thor's expression changed drastically. He immediately handed Heimdall over to the others and turned to rush towards Odin's bedchamber. However, he had only taken a few steps when he saw Loki riding a tall horse, appearing calmly at the entrance of the hall. Seeing Thor appear, Loki leaped from his horse to the ground, a cold smile playing on his lips. You're too late. I've already personally executed Laufey, who tried to assassinate my father, and his men. Awesome, sacrificing your father for the greater good. Upon hearing this, Mew couldn't help but give Loki a thumbs up. Shut up! He's not my father. Loki's face instantly turned ashen, and he gritted his teeth, saying, once I destroy Jotunheim with the Bifrost, father will understand who the rightful heir to Asgard is. The Rainbow Bridge's function is not limited to teleportation over long distances. When fully activated, it can unleash a continuous torrent of energy powerful enough to destroy a planet. It has to be said, Loki is indeed ruthless. To escape his identity, Loki was willing to kill his own father and wipe out his own people and homeland. Thor quickly stopped him. No, Loki, you can't do this. When did you start showing mercy to the frost giants? Isn't this the result you've always wanted? Loki found it utterly absurd to hear these words coming from his muscle-bound older brother. Thor said earnestly, I've changed. I've realized that some of my previous ideas were wrong. War will only bring worse results. Asgard needs peace. You've become so weak after just a few days in Midgard. Who influenced you? Was it that woman from Midgard? Loki's words were filled with anger, and even a hint of grievance. For thousands of years, Thor had never listened to his advice, but in just a few days on Earth, Thor easily changed his mind for a woman. Get out of my way! Loki grew angrier as he spoke, raising the Spear of Eternity towards Thor, its tip poised to unleash its power. But Thor did not back down, and earnestly said, Loki, I don't know why you hate me so much, and even want to kill me, but in my heart, we will always be brothers. Upon hearing Thor's sincere words, a hint of hesitation flashed in Loki's eyes. Although he enjoyed stabbing Thor with a knife, deliberately disrupting Thor's coronation, and even manipulating the destroyer to hunt Thor down. But undeniably, he still had feelings for his old friend Saul. Just as Loki hesitated, he heard Thor sigh, do you remember? Every time I beat you and you cried, you would hide in your mother's arms and cry all night long. How happy we were back then. Loki, Screw brotherhood. Noisy. Loki didn't hesitate any longer, and the Spear of Eternity instantly unleashed an energy beam that struck Thor hard in the chest. Thor grunted and was blasted away, falling to the ground unconscious without a sound. Thor! Upon seeing this, the warriors three of Asgard immediately grabbed their weapons and charged at Loki. Loki snorted and fired 3 beams in succession. The 3 warriors of Asgard were hit almost simultaneously, screaming as they were sent flying backward. Mew was speechless. Are these the 3 warriors of Asgard or the 3 extras? Why do they always get killed at the very beginning? Compared to the 3 brothers, Sif seemed much more reliable. She nimbly dodged the ray Loki shot at her, drew her long sword from her waist, and thrust it straight at Loki. Loki quickly used the Spear of Eternity to parry the longsword. Sif continued her offensive, suddenly raising her long leg and kicking Loki hard in the groin. The sound of air being cut could even be faintly heard. Loki was so frightened that he quickly shrank back and backed away. He almost lost his chance to compete for the throne of Asgard forever. If you can't reproduce, what right do you have to be an heir? Mew gasped and looked at Heimdall. Do they have a grudge? Heimdall nodded weakly and whispered, 300 years ago, Loki played a prank and cut off Sif's most beloved long hair. No wonder. Mew suddenly realized. It's true what they say, you can't afford to offend a woman, she still remembers something from 300 years ago. End of this chapter. Chapter 56 Battle Between Mages. Chapter 56 Battle Between Mages. As it turns out, you should never offend a woman who loves beauty. The grudge of having her hair cut off 300 years ago caused Sif to unleash 120% of her power. The sharp blade transformed into countless flashes of cold light, forcing Loki to retreat repeatedly, giving him no chance to catch his breath. However, Loki, being a sorcerer, was exceptionally agile. Despite the fierce onslaught, Loki managed to dodge most of the attacks by maneuvering, and even managed to wield the Spear of Eternity, fighting Sif, the goddess of war, to a standstill. For some reason, Loki always felt that the sword's edge was intentionally or unintentionally aimed at his hair. Sif swung her long sword and stabbed Loki again. This time, Loki did not dodge. The blade passed right through his body without any obstruction, and his figure gradually blurred and disappeared. Oops! Sif knew something was wrong. She knew this was Loki's most skilled illusion magic. Sure enough, Loki's true form suddenly appeared beside Sif. The Spear of Eternity flashed, and an energy ray blasted her away, sending her crashing heavily into the wall of the hall. This collision will likely prolong the feud between the two for at least several hundred years. After taking care of a few Asgardians, Loki turned his gaze to Mew and sneered. Now all that's left is you damned mortal. Noisy. Without a word, Loki raised the Spear of Eternity and fired an energy beam at Mew. Mew rolled to the side to dodge the attack, and 2 exquisitely crafted daggers appeared out of thin air in his hands. Yes, that's right, it's Loki's 2 daggers. Don't ask Mew how he got it, the answer is that he automatically picked it up and forgot to turn it off. That's my dagger. You thief! Loki was furious. No wonder he couldn't find his dagger that day, it turned out that this bastard had taken it. This is clearly my dagger, Mew stubbornly refused to admit. Bullshit! My name is engraved on that dagger. Mew looked down and saw that Loki's name was indeed engraved on the dagger. He immediately flew into a rage. You dare to carve your name on my dagger? You're asking for death. Loki, I just like to lie, but you're blatantly lying. The next moment, Mew sprang up, wielding 2 daggers and charging straight at Loki. These 2 daggers were forged from a special metal and were extremely sharp. Even Thor, who possessed divine power, could be easily pierced through their flesh. Loki knew how powerful it was and dared not take it head-on, so he quickly swung the Spear of Eternity to block. Clang! The dagger struck the gun barrel with a crisp clanging sound. Loki felt a tremendous force coming from the dagger, which made his hands go numb and the Spear of Eternity almost slip from his grasp. What did this guy eat to grow so strong? Loki cursed under his breath, realizing he was no match for Mew in a contest of strength, and sneered, you barbarian who only knows strength. Let me show you the power of a mage." The words fell. Loki's figure blurred and swayed. In the blink of an eye, several identical Lokis appeared out of thin air around Du Mu, densely surrounding him. Each Loki wields the Spear of Eternity, sporting his signature wicked smile, making them indistinguishable to the naked eye. Ha 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 ha! Loki and his companions burst into laughter, attempting to confuse Du Mu's judgment. However, Du Mu possessed the discerning eye to see through all illusions. In Du Mu's view, the real Loki was hunched over and tiptoeing, sneaking around behind him like a thief, his Spear of Eternity poised to strike him with a kidney shot. So, are mages under illusion spells really this low class? Du Mu inwardly complained, but outwardly pretended not to know. Just as Loki approached, he decisively used his newly acquired skill, illumination. In an instant, an extremely dazzling white light emanated from his body, as if several flashbangs had been detonated at close range. Loki was intently aiming at Du Mu's lower back, his eyes wide open, taking in the intense light without any warning. "Ah! My eyes!" Loki let out a scream and clutched his eyes in agony. He staggered backward, his voice tinged with shock. "This is the aura of magic. You're a mage too. Impressive. I didn't expect you to see through my disguise so easily." Du Mu nodded. Putting everything else aside, Loki certainly has a good eye for talent. Seeing Loki blinded, Du Mu immediately triggered his passive skill of beating a drowning dog, wielding 2 daggers and unleashing a barrage of attacks on Loki. Loki forced open his swollen, red eyes and frantically swung the Spear of Eternity to parry. The two fought with cold weapons for more than 10 rounds. In the end, Loki was no match for Du Mu. He was slashed several times with bloody cuts by the 2 daggers, and then Du Mu charged away, ending this battle between mages. "Enough!" Loki roared. His eyes turned bloodshot, his skin gradually turned bluish-green, and strange patterns appeared on his face. At the same time, a cube emitting a faint, deep blue light appeared out of thin air in his hand. The Frost Giant's heirloom, the Box of Ice. This is an artifact that Loki stole from the Asgardian vault. Legend has it that the Box of Ice possesses the power to freeze the 9 kingdoms, and only those with pure Frost Giant blood can use it. Loki fits the bill perfectly, and in exchange for allowing the Frost Giants to invade Asgard, he has already obtained the method to operate the artifact from his biological father Laufey. Without hesitation, he activated the icebox. In an instant, a visible, bone-chilling cold surged out of the icebox. Wherever the cold air passed, the air crackled and froze, and thick, dark blue ice instantly formed on the ground, spreading rapidly. Du Mu could tell that this chilling aura was not simple, so he decisively retreated. "BT!" Du Mu's voice rang out. BT, as if on cue, dropped Thor's hammer, scooped Du Mu into his arms, and propelled himself into the air with his leg thrusters, escaping the rapidly expanding icy domain. Loki was about to give chase when he noticed that Thor's hammer on the ground was suddenly trembling violently. Immediately afterwards, as if drawn by an invisible force, Thor's hammer suddenly transformed into a silver streak of light, whistling through the air and flying towards the entrance of the main hall. Thor, who had been lying on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes and raised his right hand to precisely catch the incoming Mjolnir. Boom! With a thunderous roar, dazzling lightning erupted from the hammer handle, engulfing Thor. Like a magical girl, Thor was bathed in holy light, and a magnificent suit of armor appeared on his body. Soon, Thor was completely transformed. His wounds disappeared without a trace, and the blood and dust all over his body were swept away, leaving him as clean as if he had taken a bath. He even dried his hair. As Thor felt the divine power he had regained within him, a surge of emotion welled up within him. Without thinking, he raised his hammer and shouted, "I am Thor, the god of thunder, for the glory of the northern gods." Loki. Oh no, this guy seems to have lost his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 57 Two Spendthrift Sons. Chapter 57 Two Spendthrift Sons, please continue reading. Regardless of what Loki was thinking, Thor certainly had a great time. After holding it in for so long, he can finally say those words with dignity. Of course, the last sentence was added by him under the influence of BT. It must be admitted that shouting this line does bring a strange sense of exhilaration. Thor, gripping Mjolnir, said to Loki, "We need to talk, Loki." Seeing Thor raise Mjolnir again, a cold glint flashed in Loki's eyes. "Soul, we have nothing to talk about." Before he finished speaking, Loki had already raised the Spear of Eternity and fired several energy beams at Thor. Thor swung Mjolnir, deflecting the incoming rays one by one. Taking advantage of the opening, Loki dashed toward Heimdall, snatched the Guardian Sword from his hand, and plunged it into the control base in the center of the teleportation hall. "Stop! Loki!" Upon seeing this, Thor immediately swung Mjolnir and charged at Loki. However, Loki activated the Rainbow Bridge without hesitation, turning the power up to the maximum, with his target Jotunheim. In an instant, the entire hall was filled with terrifying energy fluctuations. Loki, having gone this far, decided to go all the way and manipulated the box of ice to release a large amount of cold air, instantly freezing the Guardian Sword and its control base completely, eliminating any possibility of closing the Rainbow Bridge. The next second, Thor slammed into Loki, slamming him against the wall of the hall. But Loki, being a mage, was tough and resilient, and quickly stood up, sneering at Thor, "You can't stop me, so just watch Jotunheim be destroyed." "Loki! You've really gone too far this time." Thor glared at Loki, his hammer crackling with lightning, clearly preparing to give his little brother a good electrocution treatment. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Loki snorted coldly, showing no fear whatsoever. Normally it would be one thing, but now he has Odin's weapon, the Spear of Eternity, so he's not afraid of Thor at all. Just then, a sudden, tremendous force came from Loki's hand. Caught off guard, Loki's spear flew out of his hand in an instant. Mew sat steadily on BT's shoulder armor, holding a powerful magnet that firmly held the flying eternal spear. "Accept your weapons, Loki." As Thor, crackling with lightning, approached step by step, Loki forced a smile. "Sol, my brother, I suddenly feel that we can still talk." Loki tries to awaken that faint spark of brotherly love. Unfortunately, he failed. The enraged Thor had already charged forward, his hammer, Mjolnir, crackling with thunder, hurtling towards him. Rumble! A series of thunderous roars followed. Before long, Loki's skin turned the same color as Heimdall's, and his hair became a frizzy curly mess. He collapsed to the ground, puffing out white smoke. A younger brother will always be a younger brother. Mew only came over after watching this dramatic scene of brothers loving and killing each other. Seeing the energy within the hall growing increasingly violent, Thor said urgently to Mew, "The Rainbow Bridge can't be stopped anymore. I must destroy it immediately, otherwise the entire Jotunheim will be destroyed. But if that happens, you won't be able to return to Midgard." Mew waved his hand dismissively, "It's all right, I was planning to stay in Asgard anyway. Anyway, he can teleport back to Earth at any time, so there's nothing to worry about." Furthermore, he needed to develop a map in Asgard and establish a teleportation point, so he couldn't return to Earth for the time being. Immediately afterwards, the two of them and BT quickly moved all the personnel inside the hall to a safe area at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. Thor then rushed to the center of the Rainbow Bridge, and without hesitation raised Mjolnir and smashed it down on the bridge that transmitted energy. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the bridge was smashed to pieces. The out-of-control Rainbow Bridge surged with energy, instantly creating towering waves in the sea below and even tearing open a wormhole in the depths of the universe. The broken Rainbow Bridge, along with the teleportation hall, was swallowed up by the terrifying suction of the wormhole and plunged into the vast universe. Mew shook his head as he looked at this earth-shattering scene. Thor and Loki are such spendthrifts. First the Destroyer, then the Rainbow Bridge, each a priceless artifact, yet these two brothers managed to destroy them all in a single day. If their father Odin were to wake up and hear this news, he would probably faint from high blood pressure on the spot. When everyone regained consciousness and learned that the Rainbow Bridge had been destroyed, their reactions varied. Loki, in particular, looked as if his father had died, and he didn't even struggle or resist when Thor grabbed him. Thor said to Mew, "I'm taking Loki back for trial first. You can wander around Asgard for now, and I'll come back to you after I'm done." Row. Thor grabbed Loki by the back of the neck, and Mjolnir spun rapidly into the sky before disappearing into the heavens in an instant. Subsequently, several Asgardians also left. They all suffered injuries of varying degrees and needed immediate medical attention, and they also had some troublesome matters to deal with. For example, Heimdall, now that the teleportation hall and the Rainbow Bridge are gone, as the gatekeeper, he is about to face an unemployment crisis. He needs to find a new job and get back to work as soon as possible, otherwise he will have to retire early. Before leaving, Sif gave Mew a pass. With this, you can move freely throughout Asgard. As long as you don't go to those forbidden areas, no one will stop you. Mew nodded, put away the pass, and then asked, "By the way, I have a question for you. What is the problem?" Where is the treasure vault of Asgard?" "No offense, just asking out of curiosity." After everyone left, Mew wandered around Asgard alone. Unlike Earth, Asgard is not a traditional spherical planet, but a flat, star-shaped continent suspended in space. Strangely, despite the absence of a sun, day and night still alternate here. It's unscientific, but magical. However, when it comes to science, Asgard's technological level is clearly far superior to that of Earth by countless centuries. The military buildings high in Asgard are covered with anti-aircraft laser turrets surrounded by runes, and anti-gravity airships occasionally fly by in the sky. Even the weapons that Asgardian soldiers wield, which appear to be cold weapons, have some kind of energy core flickering at their hilts. If it weren't for the fact that the Asgardians' clothing style was still stuck in the Middle Ages, Mew would have thought he had stumbled into a science fiction movie. But the most outrageous thing is that the buildings in Asgard are almost all made of gold. Even the roads you walk on are made of gold. Mew's eyes were almost blinded by the dazzling light as he walked. No wonder Thor and Loki are so arrogant. If he had that kind of wealth and a god-king father in real life, he would live an even more arrogant life than them. Dear readers, please keep reading. You need to click to the latest chapter to count as following. Please. End of this chapter. Chapter 58 The Wealthy and Powerful Asgard. Chapter 58 The Wealthy and Powerful Asgard. Unfortunately, Mew ultimately failed to find the location of Asgard's treasure vault. He has already explored a small part of Asgard and now all that's left is to go to the designated location to activate the map so he can place the map teleportation anchor. Back at SHIELD headquarters, Mew did just that, activating the teleportation anchor point in Nick Fury's office. Of course, not all places can be used to place anchor points. Only locations recognized as landmarks by the game system can be used. Previously, the only locations that met the criteria were SHIELD headquarters, Midtown High School, and Stark Tower. However, Mew has not yet had time to activate the latter two locations, and for the time being, only the SHIELD headquarters teleportation point is available. After wandering around for a while, Mew still hadn't seen Thor, but instead encountered several Asgardian guards who said that accommodations had been arranged for him. Mew followed the guards there, only to discover that the so-called residence was actually a palace. Moreover, this palace was a gift from Asgard to Mew, and he has the right to use it permanently. This undoubtedly reinforced Doomew's preconceived notion that Asgard was wealthy and powerful. The next day, Thor descended from the sky wielding Mjolnir and approached Doomew. "Is it all done?" Doomew asked. Thor nodded. "Father has awakened. He knows what Loki has done and has ordered him imprisoned in the Asgardian dungeons for 100 years as punishment. The punishment is getting more and more serious. For the ancient Asgardians, a century-long punishment was neither short nor too long. After all, he was his own son. Even if he was picked up from the junkyard of Jotunheim, Odin was not without feelings. This punishment was not unexpected." Thor sighed. "Loki wasn't like this before. How did he become like this?" Seeing his dearest younger brother fall into such a state, he felt heartbroken and ate a whole roasted lamb that night with tears in his eyes. Doomew casually suggested, "It's probably the rebellious phase. The child is disobedient. A little shock will do the trick." "Does an electric shock work?" Thor asked, somewhat surprised. "Of course, look how clear your eyes are now after I gave you a shock back then." Saul was momentarily speechless, then hesitated for a moment before asking, "What if an electric shock doesn't work?" "Then keep shocking him until he admits his mistake." "That's it, I understand." Thor looked thoughtful. Doomew raised an eyebrow. "Speaking of which, you didn't come to see me just to talk about Loki, did you?" "Yes." Thor then remembered his business and said enthusiastically, "A grand feast will be held in the Golden Palace in Asgard tonight. My friend, you should come and join us." "Okay." Doomew agreed without much thought. The activation point for Asgard happens to be in the Golden Palace, so I can go there to activate the map while I'm at it. Thor suddenly remembered something and asked, "By the way, did you see the box of ice and Gungnir yesterday?" Doomew shook his head blankly. "I don't know, I guess Loki took it." Just as Saul was about to speak, his gaze was drawn to two familiar items in the corner of the room. "The box of ice and Gungnir!" Thor exclaimed in surprise, then looked at Doomew with a strange expression. Doomew was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly slapped his thigh and roared angrily, "You, Loki! As expected of the god of mischief, you're really good at framing people." Thor, "No, no, I think you're better at framing people." In the end, Thor got the casket of ice and Gungnir the Spear of Eternity back. Unfortunately, like Mjolnir, these two divine items have special protection mechanisms, so Doomew cannot put them into the game's inventory. Moreover, their usage conditions are even more demanding than Thor's hammer. Either one needs to have pure frost giant blood, or one must be the heir to the throne of Asgard, which he simply cannot use. Only defeated bosses like the Destroyer could be considered Doomew's loot and added to his game inventory. That night, Doomew arrived at the Golden Palace, located in the very center of Asgard. The Golden Palace, the abode of the gods, is far more magnificent than any other building in Asgard, perfectly embodying the architectural aesthetic of Asgard that regards money as dirt. Everywhere you looked was a dazzling gold, even the armor of the guards shone with golden light. Just as Doomew was about to randomly pick a lucky person to ambush, he saw the three brave extras walking towards him. Doomew was speechless. These three brothers are like Magneton, always sticking together. The three extras also noticed Doomew and immediately surrounded him to greet him warmly, inviting him to go to the banquet hall together. It must be said, this Golden Palace is truly enormous. Led by the three brave extras, they walked for several tens of minutes, winding their way through the maze of streets, before finally arriving at the Golden Palace. Without the map and these three local guides, Doomew would definitely have gotten lost in this golden maze. Isn't Thor's house so big that he'll get lost? Doomew couldn't help but complain. Fandel thought for a moment. Sol did get lost several times when he was a child. It's here. No, it was in his own bedroom. After walking for another 10 minutes or so, the group finally arrived at the banquet hall of the Golden Palace. The golden gate, several tens of meters long, slowly opened, revealing the luxurious palace inside. The hall was bustling with noise as many Asgardians enjoyed various delicacies and boasted to their friends. Apart from their different clothing styles, it looked much like a gathering on Earth. Asgardians are known for their love of alcohol. Every man and woman carries a bottle of liquor. The three extras immediately grabbed their wine glasses and chugged them down. Good wine. With a series of cracking sounds, the three of them smashed the empty cups in their hands on the ground. This is a traditional custom of the Asgardians. They smash the cup when they're really enjoying their drink. Selling cups in Asgard is a sure way to make a profit, Mew thought to himself. Mew, come and drink with us. Vestag patted his large belly and extended an invitation to Mew, almost shouting that happy times were about to begin. No, I don't like drinking. How can a true warrior not know how to drink? Mew, you're too weak. Mew narrowed his eyes. I happen to have a bottle of wine here. If you finish it, I'll drink with you, how about that? Upon hearing this, the three extras burst into laughter. I could easily drink 100 bottles of wine, let alone one. That's right, I usually drink alcohol like water. No need for three, I can finish it all by myself. The three extras patted their chests, making grand pronouncements, declaring that whoever got drunk was a dog. Not long after, several muffled thuds were heard. The three warriors who were just moments ago full of bravado have now transformed into the three hounds of Asgard, collapsing onto the table and fast asleep. That's it. Mew smiled dismissively and put away the infinity wine bottle in his hand. Once the wine in the bottle is emptied, new wine will be automatically produced inside, and the type of wine will be random. Fortunately, the three Asgardian dogs had amazing physical constitutions. If it were an ordinary earthling, drinking more than a dozen different kinds of strong liquor in a short period of time would definitely lead to alcohol poisoning and hospitalization. Thank you so much to reader TONIK8 for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 59 The Queen and Number 039, S Teachings. Chapter 59 The Queen's Teachings. The map teleportation point has been placed. You can now teleport to Asgard. Mew activated the Asgard map in the Golden Palace and placed a map teleportation anchor. Now he can travel freely between Earth and Asgard. Ignoring the three drunken Asgardian dogs, Mew leisurely strolled around the banquet hall of the Golden Palace, carrying a plate full of food. He casually checked the information of the NPCs around him and found that many of them had familiar names, all of which came from gods in Norse mythology. Of course, the power of these gods was far less exaggerated than described in mythology. Rather than gods, they are more like aliens with superior technology and physique. Most of them are simply physically superior to humans, while special NPCs like Thor and Loki, who possess special effects, are extremely rare. Just then, Mew noticed that Sif was chatting with an elegant woman who didn't seem like an ordinary NPC. NPC, Frigga. Codename, Queen. Fav ability, 20. Evaluation, Thor's biological mother, Loki's adoptive mother and magical mentor, melee mage. Mew seemed to know why Loki preferred close combat. Perhaps sensing Mew's gaze, Frigga looked over. Then, she and Sif approached together, and she gave Mew a gentle smile. You must be Mew? I know you, the new friend Thor made in Midgard. Thank you for your help to him. Little things, little things. Mew waved his hand casually. Frigga's gaze lingered on Mew for a moment longer, then her smile held a hint of understanding. She said softly, Mew, I can sense a special magical aura surrounding you, but it is still very weak. You must be a mage who has just begun to explore the path of magic, right? Good eye, no wonder she's a superstar. Mew gave a thumbs up and said, to be honest, I'm a newbie mage. I just learned the illumination spell and haven't had time to learn essential mage skills like one-handed sword, two-handed sword, and whirlwind slash yet. It's a bit embarrassing to admit. Sif. Are you sure this is a skill a mage should learn? You've only just begun, and you have a long way to go. There's no need to rush, Frigga comforted her. She remained calm and didn't think there was anything wrong with Du Mu's words. After all, she herself was a mage proficient in one-handed swords. Frigga continued, if you'd like, I can share some magical experience with you as a token of my gratitude for helping Thor. NPC Frigga is offering you magical skills and knowledge. Do you accept? Is there such a good thing? Upon hearing the game system's prompt, Du Mu's eyes lit up. I can't accept this, but standing and talking is a bit tiring. Why don't we sit down and chat? Queen, would you like some lamb leg? I won't eat it, thank you. Under the careful guidance of the great mage Frigga, Du Mu, the novice mage, gained a great deal and also began to understand the magic system of this world. According to Frigga's explanation, the essence of magic is actually the use of special energy. However, the vast majority of life forms do not possess magical potential because they do not have magical energy within them. Simply put, there is no blue bar. Just like game players, if they don't have mana, they naturally can't use skills that consume mana. So some people took the risk of borrowing energy from dimensional demons in order to gain the ability to use magic. Of course, those dimensional demons are not benevolent either. Borrowing their energy comes at a price, the extent of which depends on the dimensional demon's conscience. This is similar to borrowing money from a loan company. Some institutions are relatively compliant and offer lower interest rates, while others are usurious, with a high return rate of 90% to 130%. Moreover, once you borrow, don't even think about defaulting, because the creditor may come knocking on your door at any time and take away the principal and interest together. Frigga smiled and said, so, do you understand what I mean? Du Mu nodded vigorously, I completely understand. You mean to strive to become a capitalist like a dimensional demon god, and have others work for you to pay interest. Sif. Frigga. Isn't your understanding a little too thorough? Frigga said frankly, I mean, someone with your natural magical potential is extremely rare in the 9 realms. I believe that your future path will go further and more steadily than that of most mages. After Frigga's barrage of praise, Du Mu felt a little embarrassed. After that, Frigga taught Du Mu some basic methods of using magic, without going into more advanced content. According to Frigga, her magic system is not suitable for Du Mu, and Du Mu needs to explore and forge his own magical path. These foundations can help Du Mu lay a solid foundation. Remember, your path of magic is still long. Don't be impatient for quick results, and don't limit yourself to the paths of others. Understood, thank you for your guidance, Queen. Du Mu looked at the newly added basic magic skills on his attribute panel and felt sincerely grateful. Frigga smiled and said, if you ever encounter any problems with magic in the future, you can come to me anytime. Okay. Du Mu nodded and watched Frigga and Sif leave. He simply couldn't understand how such an elegant and wise queen could raise such an oddball brother as Thor and Loki. Du Mu. I've finally found you. Said that CAO arrived. A familiar loud voice came from behind him, and Du Mu saw Thor walking towards him. The methods you taught me are completely useless. Loki has never admitted his mistakes, Thor said in frustration. There's no reason for this. Is Loki really that stubborn? Du Mu was somewhat surprised, have you said anything to him? Saul was even more surprised than him, is there anything else to say? Du Mu. How will Loki know what you're going to do if you don't tell him? Du Mu couldn't help but feel sorry for Loki for a second, then changed the subject, saying, since things have come to this, let's eat first. Try this lamb leg, it tastes really good. Thor looked at the lamb leg that Du Mu handed him, and his Adam's apple bobbed noticeably. But the thought of Loki immediately brought a somber expression to his face. With Loki in this state, how could I, as his brother, possibly have any appetite? Du Mu didn't buy it at all and directly stuffed a leg of lamb from the plate into Thor's mouth. Thor was shocked and furious, and opened his mouth to rebuke Du Mu for his rude behavior. But Du Mu's movements were just too fast. Before Saul could react, Du Mu forcibly stuffed a lamb leg into his mouth. He felt wronged but couldn't express it, and tears of sadness involuntarily streamed down his face. Du Mu. Wow, this is the first time he's ever seen someone open their mouth so wide, as if they're afraid the lamb leg won't fit. Thank you so much to Reader Man in the Mortal World for the generous donation. You're awesome, thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 60 Professional Team. Chapter 60 Professional Team. I'm back. With a bang, Du Mu kicked open the office door. Nick Fury, behind his desk, remained calm, clearly used to it. He glanced at Du Mu's incongruous classical attire and asked with a dark face, Agent Du Mu, where have you been these past few days? Coulson reported to me that you've been out of contact. Asgard, Coulson ordered me to keep an eye on Thor, so I've been following him. Du Mu replied matter-of-factly, well, I spent a few days in Asgard monitoring things, and as soon as I finished, I rushed back to report. Nick Fury. You were just saying you played for a few days, right? Next, Du Mu briefly recounted what had happened between Thor and Loki. After listening, Nick Fury rubbed his temples hard, his voice weary, so all this commotion turned out to be just an internal family conflict among aliens. Du Mu nodded, that's right. So, should I go back now to assist Coulson? No need, you can stay in New York. Nick Fury waved his hand, feeling a sudden headache. He originally planned to transfer Du Mu to a remote area to avoid trouble for a while, but he didn't expect it to cause such a big commotion. According to Coulson's report, the battle between Du Mu's mech and the destroyer nearly leveled half of the local town. Because Du Mu was involved, SHIELD had to compensate for some of the losses, which made their already tight budget even worse. Mission Support Coulson successfully completed. Rewards, 1000 XP, 20 SHIELD Reputation, Item Hydrofluoric Acid, Item Protein Energy Block. Props, Hydrofluoric Acid, an essential tool for disposing of a body, remember not to pour it into the bathtub. Item, Protein Energy Block, Snowpiercer Specialty, with a protein content more than 10 times that of beef. Oh, right, there's something I need to remind you of. Nick Fury looked at Du Mu and said, remember the mission you were on to become a level 6 agent? That organization called The Hand has been secretly investigating you all this time, and they even put up a high bounty on the dark web to find your whereabouts. I've got a bounty on my head. Upon hearing this, Du Mu asked curiously, then how much is the bounty on my head? $200. What? Upon hearing this, Du Mu immediately became furious. Calm down. I know you're angry about the bounty on your head. I'll handle this, Nick Fury tried to reassure him. To everyone's surprise, Du Mu angrily retorted, I'm only worth $200 million. Damn it, who do they think they are? Nick Fury. It turns out this guy was angry not because of the bounty, but because he thought the bounty was too low. Director, let me handle this myself. You don't need to get involved. After Du Mu finished speaking, he turned and left angrily. After he left, Nick Fury looked at the report on the allocation of funds in his hand, and the worry on his face vanished instantly. Now we have another excuse to apply to the World Council for more funding. After leaving the director's office, Du Mu immediately used his level 6 agent privileges to find the bounty information about himself. The notice clearly stated that providing clues related to the target would earn a reward of $10 to $50, and providing the target's specific location, once verified, would earn a reward of $100 million. If the target is captured directly, the reward is $200 million. Most people, seeing such a high bounty on their head, would be extremely cautious, fearing a bounty hunter might appear at any moment. But Du Mu didn't think that way. He felt his bounty was too low. Wang Luffy's bounty is in the hundreds of millions, so who does he think he is with a mere 200 million? Du Mu stared at the amount of the reward he had offered, feeling quite displeased. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Since I'm just idling around anyway, I might as well earn this money myself. Late at night, in Hell's Kitchen. Deep inside an abandoned factory, a dozen or so blurry black figures gathered. In the center of the venue stood an Asian man who seemed to be living a comfortable life, and an elderly woman with a face full of wrinkles. The old woman squinted at Murakami and said slowly and hoarsely, "Murakami, I heard that your apprentice Shin not only lost the organization's ledgers, but also lost an important member. Now Alexandra is quite dissatisfied with you." Murakami said with a grim expression, "Mrs. Gao, I have already begun investigating the two people who broke into the building that day. One is Daredevil, who often operates in Hell's Kitchen, and the other's identity is currently unknown. However, I have already issued a bounty on the dark web to track down this person. The good news is that I have just received notification that the unidentified person has been apprehended and will likely be brought here soon." Mrs. Gao nodded, "That's good. There's an Eastern idiom, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. Today, we'll use this ignorant chicken to teach those monkeys who dare to spy on the Hand Association a good lesson." Hearing Mrs. Gao speak Chinese with a less than perfect accent, Murakami couldn't help but secretly purse his lips. Mrs. Gao still prefers to use Chinese that no one can understand, putting on an air of profound knowledge. However, his spoken Chinese is really not impressive. It's not even as standard as his casual remark, "Those who know when to yield are the heroes." Just as Murakami said, footsteps soon came from outside the abandoned factory. A masked man escorted Du Mu, who was bound hand and foot, into the abandoned factory. The masked man looked at Murakami and said, "The person you requested has been delivered. Please confirm receipt." "That's right, it's this guy." When Murakami saw Du Mu's appearance, he snorted coldly, wishing he could tear Du Mu to pieces on the spot. Suppressing his anger, he asked the masked man, "How did you catch this guy?" Even their Hand Society couldn't find Du Mu's identity or whereabouts, so Murakami was very curious about how the masked man managed to do it. The masked man said coldly, "We are a professional team, and we have our own methods. You don't need to know that. Now that it's confirmed, we'll pay you according to the rules." Murakami frowned slightly, somewhat displeased with the masked man's attitude. No matter what, he was a high-ranking member of the Hand, yet a mere bounty hunter dared to look down on him so disrespectfully. Murakami twitched his fingers slightly, and figures slowly surrounded him, each holding a samurai sword. Clearly, he changed his mind and decided to get it for free. Seeing this, the masked man remained calm and said, "I advise you not to have any bad ideas." As he spoke, the masked man clapped his hands. The next moment, a dozen or so masked men rushed into the abandoned factory. Each of them was fully armed, with equipment far superior to that of ordinary troops. Some even carried RPG rocket launchers, aiming them at Murakami and the others. Murakami, Mrs. Gao, That's so professional. End of this chapter.